Hi everyone. Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. The night sky spread across the horizon like an endless tapestry of shadows, punctuated by the faint glow of stars that burned so high above the forest. It was just after sunset, in the sprawling territory of the Silvercrest pack, one of the oldest packs known for its deep sense of tradition and formidable lineage. On the outskirts of the main compound, a young woman named Eliana stood, heart pounding in her chest, uncertain of her future. She was barely 18, and her slender frame trembled with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Tonight was supposed to be a turning point in her life, yet the flicker of hope she had carried for months felt heartbreakingly fragile. Eliana was born as the second of identical twins, a rarity within werewolf bloodlines. Throughout her childhood, she was reminded daily that she shared a face with someone else, her twin sister Selena, who was only older by a handful of minutes. Despite their uncanny resemblance, they were as different as summer and winter. Eliana was often soft-spoken, more in tune with the world around her. She found solace in the hushed corners of the forest, content to hum little tunes to herself, gather herbs for healing, and spend long hours gazing at moonlit lakes. In contrast, Selena possessed a boldness that set hearts racing. She walked as if the world itself was hers for the taking, capturing the attention of everyone with her dynamic, flirtatious charm. Yet a secret had bound them together since birth. The family's personal seer, an older woman with eyes clouded by prophecy, had once whispered to their parents that one of these twins was destined to rise to a position of immense importance, linked to the future of the Silvercrest pack. She had proclaimed that the Luna of the next generation would be born to them, and that the moon goddess's mark was hidden in the soul of one of the two sisters. For years, everyone believed that the fated child would reveal herself in time, certain signs shining through her personality or physical traits. As the girls grew, Selena's vivacious nature seemed to be the luminous spark that indicated leadership, while Eliana's gentler ways and introspective nature seemed more suited to quiet tasks. Few suspected that Eliana might be the one chosen by fate. At the heart of the pack's territory loomed the Alpha's grand estate, a stately mansion with sprawling gardens and towering columns. Marcus, the Alpha's only son, was the heir to the position of Alpha for the Silvercrest pack. Tall, broad-shouldered, and with a gaze that carried the promise of dominion, he had been raised since childhood to lead with unwavering resolve. Hushed rumors among the pack members suggested that his mate was one of the twin daughters of the esteemed Blackwood family. He, of course, had never openly confirmed or denied those rumors. But tonight, the formal ceremony approached, an event in which Marcus would choose his destined mate from among the eligible she-wolves of the pack. In truth, most believed Selena would be the selection. She was outgoing, never one to be shy, and always the first to entice a grin from the young Alpha. Eliana stood in the background, overshadowed by her sister's social radiance, never imagining that fate had singled her out for a greater role. Despite her attempts to quell her nerves, Eliana felt a wave of dread heavy in her gut. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. She listened to the gentle rustle of the breeze through the tall trees surrounding the estate. The crisp night pressed in around her as she wondered if the seer's prophecy could possibly hold any truth. She had glimpsed small signs within herself, brief moments of heightened senses, the occasional sense that she was hearing the murmurs of the forest. She once even felt a distant bond tug her toward Marcus when they were both children. But she had dismissed these feelings as foolishness. After all, Selena was the one who belonged on a pedestal, or so everyone said. Inside the sprawling main hall, where the entire pack had gathered, Eliana felt dwarfed by the countless wolves around her. Long tables lined the marble floors. Exquisite tapestries depicting wolves howling at moonlit skies hung from the walls. Massive chandeliers cast a golden glow across the hall, illuminating the dancing shapes of guests robed in finely tailored attire. Some spoke in hushed voices about which families might rise in status, about deals to be made, and about the future direction of the pack. The tension was palpable as the event approached its peak. Eliana spotted her parents, Jacob and Catherine, standing near the dais reserved for the Alpha's family. They wore tense expressions as they observed both of their daughters. Though they had tried to remain neutral, it was clear they privately guessed Selena would be chosen. Selena herself was near a group of laughing, gossiping friends, wearing a flowing white gown that clung to her curves. She tossed her glossy hair over her shoulder with dramatic flair, winking at Marcus, who stood on an elevated platform at the front of the hall. Eliana, by contrast, wore a simple pale blue dress that skimmed her figure modestly. She did not wish to catch everyone's attention, but she was here because custom demanded her presence. She wanted to support the Alpha's upcoming announcement, no matter what the outcome. As music echoed across the high ceilings, the crowd slowly quieted. Marcus, regal in a dark suit, stepped forward and let his gaze travel across the assembled wolves. His presence commanded respect. A hush fell over the hall, leaving only the faint strains of a harp playing from a corner of the dais. Eliana's heart pounded, her palms clammy. She cast an anxious glance at Selena, who stood with a confident tilt to her chin, sure the Alpha's choice would fall upon her. She was a vision of poise as she feigned humility in front of the crowd. Marcus cleared his throat. "Tonight," he began, voice deep with authority, "I follow our sacred traditions. I choose the mate who will stand by me, govern at my side, and protect our pack. The strength of Silvercrest rests on this bond, a union blessed by the moon goddess." He paused, sweeping his gaze around the hall before landing on Selena. A flicker of something crossed his face, maybe attraction, maybe a certainty that had been building for years. "Selena, will you join me?" he asked, tone resolute. A hush fell, and then applause followed. The assembled wolves were not entirely surprised. Selena radiated pride as she climbed the steps, offering a flirtatious smile. She placed her hand in his. It was a picture-perfect moment. Eliana felt tears sting her eyes. She knew she should feel relief. This was expected. What the entire pack had believed for so long. Still, a part of her shattered. Her wolf howled in her mind, as though something vital had been broken. She realized with a jolt that the prophecy might not be as simple as everyone had assumed. Despite never voicing it, she had felt a bond with Marcus, a quiet but potent pull, as if their souls recognized each other. Now that bond pulled taut, burning with rejection. Selena, perched gracefully on the dais, let out a laugh and addressed the gathering with bright eyes. She proclaimed that she would serve the pack with devotion, that she would do everything in her power to be a good Luna. The crowd clapped, but from somewhere on the edges, an older woman with cloudy eyes, the ancient seer of the pack, let out a barely audible sigh. She turned her gaze sharply toward Eliana, who stood in the crowd with her head bowed, tears shimmering on her lashes. The seer's expression was one of regret and concern, but the young woman did not notice it. Her heart was too busy cracking beneath the weight of her heartbreak. When the ceremony ended, Eliana slipped outside. The cold night air gave her a sharp jolt, but it did little to numb the pain inside her chest. She tried to gather herself by pressing her back against a stone pillar. She stared at the dim lanterns that lined the paths around the courtyard, wishing she could simply vanish among the twisting shadows of the trees. She had never wanted the attention, but she had not realized how much she yearned to be accepted, to have that bond recognized. She felt that in Marcus's choice, something had gone horribly wrong. But how could she blame her sister, who was simply fulfilling what everyone believed to be her rightful place? She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Marcus approaching. Eliana stiffened, her heart pounding as she met his gaze. He was a commanding figure, every angle of his face carved from confidence. Yet now, up close, she could sense uncertainty rippling beneath that proud exterior. He held her gaze for a moment before lowering his eyes, as if he was apologetic. "Eliana," he said softly, stepping a bit closer so they would not be overheard. "I wanted to check on you. I know these ceremonies can be overwhelming." She swallowed hard, summoning all her composure. "I am all right," she lied, trying not to let her voice quiver. He studied her face in the dim glow of a nearby lantern, brows drawn together. "I know you better than that," he said quietly. "We grew up alongside each other. You rarely hide your emotions well." He reached out as if to touch her shoulder, then thought better of it, letting his hand drop. "I do not want this to come between us, or between you and Selena." Those words hurt more than a direct insult. Did he think that merely offering friendship after this heartbreak would patch the gaping wound inside her? She forced a small smile she did not feel. "Selena is the better choice," she said, repeating the refrain she had been taught all her life, the same lie that had become a kind of truth in the eyes of everyone around them. Marcus hesitated, as if hearing a faint echo of doubt in the night air, but he let it pass. "Thank you," he said, voice uncertain. Then he turned away to rejoin his new mate, leaving Eliana in that quiet courtyard, watching his retreating figure under the flickering lantern light. She felt a wave of sadness that threatened to overwhelm her. Instinctively, she glanced up at the moon, shimmering in the starlit sky. Something deep within her soul whispered that this was not how it was meant to be. Within weeks, the union was made official. Selena was introduced as Marcus's promised mate, and a wedding day was announced. The pack elders, enthusiastic for a new generation of leadership, began deferring to Selena on small matters of pack organization, giving her a taste of lunar responsibilities. Eliana, meanwhile, found herself retreating. She spent more and more time at the pack library, reading through dusty tomes about werewolf lore, healing methods, and the ancient duties of Eluna. She told herself she only wanted to remain useful, to learn something that could benefit her people. Perhaps it was an unconscious attempt to find answers. Why was she feeling so lost? The books did not offer comfort, though, only more questions. Over the next few months, Selena reveled in her growing status, learning to command attention effortlessly. The entire pack marveled at how quickly she adapted to the administrative tasks of Eluna, though beneath the surface, some older wolves appeared uneasy. Whispers began to swirl that Selena's excitement for social events overshadowed her ability to handle deeper pack issues. Meanwhile, Marcus, feeling the weight of alpha training, spent long hours perfecting his leadership skills and strengthening the territory's boundaries. He was a dedicated soldier of the pack, determined to protect his people. But inside the walls of the estate, the bond he shared with Selena seemed oddly forced. None dared question it openly. If the Alpha had made his choice, so be it. Eliana found that she could not bear the strain of living in the same territory with them, forced to watch the close partnership that could have been hers. Her heart ached in a way she did not know how to soothe. She begged her parents to let her travel. She wanted to see distant lands, to learn from other packs, to find her own path. At first, they resisted, claiming it was too dangerous for a young she-wolf to travel alone. But then a distant aunt offered Eliana a place in her quiet home near the western mountains, and it seemed like the perfect chance to escape. Eventually, her parents relented, if only to prevent further tension or heartbreak within the pack. And so, Eliana left. She boarded a rugged old jeep, taking one last look at the gates of the Silvercrest estate, the iconic wolf insignia carved into the stone archway. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. She did not look back again. She resolved, in that moment, to find her own purpose. She might not be the chosen Luna, and she might have lost the man who she had realized too late was her destined mate, but she would not be swallowed by sorrow. During the first year of her life away from Silvercrest, Eliana discovered an aptitude for healing arts. She apprenticed with a renowned herbalist who taught her how to harness the power of plants, roots, and even certain mystical energies. She spent day after day in the crisp mountain air, collecting rare herbs under the guidance of her mentor, learning to brew potions that could ease pain and mend wounds that ordinary salves could not. She also trained her wolf, honing her senses in the rugged wilds. The terrain was perilous, but she discovered an inner resilience she never knew she possessed. She lived simply, hunting her own food and sleeping under starlit skies, if that was what the journey required. She missed home, but she pushed forward with unwavering determination. That newfound grit did not erase the heartbreak. Late at night, she would curl up in front of the fire and feel the phantom ache of a bond that had never been fully recognized. The werewolf inside her wanted to howl in mourning for something it sensed was still missing. However, she channeled those emotions into her studies. If she could not fulfill her supposed destiny as a Luna, then perhaps she could help people through healing. Over time, she learned advanced techniques that allowed her to restore ailing wolves faster than many modern pack doctors. She was forging her own path, shaping her identity into something strong and self-reliant. She had no illusions that she was free from longing, but at least she was not living in the constant shadow of Selena's triumph. Years trickled by, and Eliana adapted to her new life so completely that the heartbreak became a distant ache. She matured into a serene, quietly confident young woman whose gentle compassion was matched by her formidable healing skills. She made friends among small packs scattered across the mountains and valleys. Her reputation spread quietly, and many sought her aid when traditional medicine failed. Despite the pang of old memories, she found peace in her solitude. The nights were not as lonely as they once were, and she found her own form of joy in the hush of moonlit forests. It was on one such serene night that a messenger from the Silvercrest pack finally arrived. She was tending to her small garden when she heard the sound of padded footsteps. A young wolf, half-shifting, stumbled onto her property, exhaustion clinging to his every move. Alarmed, Eliana rushed forward and helped him. His breath came in ragged gasps as he explained that he was from Silvercrest, that he had been sent by Marcus, now the official Alpha, to locate her. Trouble had come to the pack's borders. A rogue threat was expanding, attacking without warning. Dozens of wolves lay wounded, and the pack's defenses were weakening. No one could figure out how to stop the onslaught. Selena, now Luna, was struggling to coordinate the pack's response. They desperately needed help from someone with formidable healing abilities, and rumor had it that Eliana possessed exactly that. Eliana stood there, her heart hammering, as all those memories she had tried to bury came rushing back. She recalled that final night, standing in the courtyard, feeling tears on her cheeks. She remembered the heartbreak and the sense that something about Marcus's choice was fundamentally wrong. Yet the messenger had told her that Marcus personally requested her. Had he finally understood something was amiss? Or was this merely an act of desperation, turning to the best-known healer within their reach? With trembling hands, she helped the young wolf inside and tended to his wounds. Confusion warred in her heart. She longed to ignore the summons, to stay in the relative peace she had carved out. But she also knew that her old pack was in peril, and innocent wolves were dying. She could not let bitterness or old heartbreak blind her to the possibility that she might save lives. That very evening, she packed her belongings. Her mentor, the herbalist, pressed a final pouch of rare healing herbs into her hands, wishing her the best. Eliana thanked her with tears in her eyes. Then, at dawn's light, she set out with the Silvercrest messenger. The journey would take days, passing through thick forests and winding mountain roads, until they reached the territory she once called home. Every turn of the road brought new pangs of anticipation and dread. She wondered how the pack had changed. She wondered about Selena. And, most of all, she wondered what it would feel like to stand in front of Marcus again, after all these years, knowing that she had once been the rightful mate, yet he had chosen differently. By the time they neared the Silvercrest estate, night had fallen. Lanterns lined the winding driveway, and Eliana's heart twisted at the sight of familiar landmarks. The wide stable where she once snuck out to ride a horse under the moon, the orchard where she and Selena had shared secrets and laughter, and the lake in the distance, shining faintly like liquid silver. Emotions roiled within her, yet she tried to keep a calm face. She was here to heal, nothing more. She would not unravel in front of them. The estate's grand doors swung open. A guard recognized Eliana and bowed respectfully, though confusion glimmered in his eyes. She followed the messenger across marble floors toward a large chamber that had been converted into a makeshift infirmary. The scent of antiseptics and the moans of the injured assaulted her senses. Dozens of wolves lay on pallets. Some had deep gashes, others were feverish from infection. Healers scurried about, looking haggard and overwhelmed. Chaos reigned. Eliana drew in a steadying breath, determined to face it head-on. She dropped to her knees beside the nearest wounded wolf and assessed the wounds, slashes down the torso from what looked like a rogue's claws. She summoned her training, applying salves and chanting quiet incantations she had learned from her mentor. Her hands glowed faintly with the energy of the healing arts she had spent years cultivating. Within moments, the wolf's pained breathing settled, and though he was not fully healed, his fever began to subside. The other healers stared, astonished at the swiftness of her abilities. Eliana wasted no time on pride. She moved from patient to patient, triaging them, instructing the lesser-trained medics on which remedies to administer first, how to cleanse the infected wounds properly, and which herbs would reduce fever. She worked through the night, ignoring her own exhaustion. It was the early hours of dawn when the door to the infirmary opened again, revealing a tall, commanding figure. Eliana looked up, heart lurching. Marcus stood there in a plain shirt and trousers, dark hair disheveled, eyes shadowed with worry. He looked older, the weight of his responsibilities etched into the lines of his face, but no less imposing. For a moment he appeared speechless, as he watched Eliana kneel beside an injured wolf, her hands steady, her expression resolute. Then he inclined his head. "Eliana," he said quietly, stepping closer. "Thank you for coming. My pack, needs you." She nodded, struggling to keep her voice neutral. "I came because I heard the situation is dire," she replied. Then she added more softly, I could not just stand by when so many are suffering. His gaze flicked to the patient at her side. Your skill is impressive, he said, though he looked pained. The entire infirmary has been filled nightly. We have lost many. I fear more are on the brink. Eliana felt a twinge of sorrow in her chest as she remembered how unstoppable Marcus once seemed, how proud and confident. Now that confidence was marred by desperation. She rose, dusted off her gown, and said, "Show me the ones who are worst off first. I will do what I can." Marcus led her to a separate chamber where severely injured wolves were kept. Along the way, she caught glimpses of Selena. The Luna was standing near the side of an older pack council member, trying to manage supply lists and protective strategies. She had changed in appearance, more refined somehow, but there was a tension in her expression. She turned and saw Eliana, eyes narrowing with confusion and something else. Guilt, perhaps. Their gazes locked, but neither said a word. Then Selena turned on her heel and disappeared into the corridor with the council member. The new chamber was quieter, a place for those so injured they could not even rest in the crowded infirmary. The air smelled of misery and despair. Eliana stepped forward and began her work without hesitation. Some of the wolves had been attacked so savagely that open wounds festered. Others showed signs of poison from some unknown source. She felt tears burn her eyes as she realized how severe the situation was. The rogues were not simply harassing the border. They were waging an organized, brutal assault. She and Marcus exchanged few words as she worked. He watched her in silence, occasionally giving a nod of encouragement or checking on a soldier who recognized him. After hours of intensive care, one older wolf stirred from unconsciousness. Another's fever broke. Though the progress was slow, a hint of hope bloomed in the eyes of the pack's healers. Eliana's abilities were not limitless, but her knowledge and skill far surpassed what the local medics could provide on their own. Finally, exhaustion forced Eliana to take a moment to rest. She washed her hands in a basin of water that had already turned a murky shade of red from so many rinses. Marcus approached and offered her a clean towel. Their eyes met, and for a moment she was reminded of how things used to be. Two children running around the orchard, picking apples and chasing each other under the dappled sunlight. But that memory vanished as quickly as it came. "Thank you," she murmured, drying her hands. He stepped back, as though remembering she was no longer just a childhood friend. "You are remarkable," he said, voice tinged with regret. "The strength you show, it I did not realize." She bristled slightly, a shard of old pain ripping through her heart. "You made your choice a long time ago," she said quietly. "I had to find my own path." He seemed to want to respond, but instead he just nodded. "I will let you rest for now, but I must speak with you about the battle soon. About everything," she agreed, but when Marcus left, she felt the prickle of tears behind her eyelids. This was no time to dwell on old wounds, she reminded herself. The pack was in danger, and her priority was to save as many lives as she could. That night, she found a small bunk in one of the estate's lesser-used rooms to sleep. But sleep did not come easily. Thoughts swirled about how drastically her life had changed in just a few days. She was back in the place she once called home, stepping into a chaos of violence and heartbreak. Despite her exhaustion, she felt restless, as though some invisible force was pulling her deeper into the night. She slipped out of her bunk and padded down the dark hallway, the moonlight casting strange shadows on the marble floors. Drawn outside, she took a path leading to the silent gardens near the edge of the mansion. A quiet hush lay over the shrubs, the flowers drooping in the moonlight as if sharing the pack's sorrow. She passed a statue of the moon goddess, its features regal yet gentle. Eliana knelt before it, feeling a sudden rush of emotion. She asked the goddess for clarity, for the wisdom to help her old pack, her family. She also silently asked for the strength to face Marcus and Selena without bitterness, though the memory of the night she was overlooked stung like an old wound. As she rose, the rustle of footsteps made her turn. Selena stepped from behind a tall hedge, wearing a thin robe over her nightdress. Her features were taut. A moment of silence passed between the two sisters as they regarded each other under the moon's glow. In the quiet of the gardens, Selena looked more vulnerable than Eliana had ever seen her. "You returned," Selena said softly, her voice filled with conflicting emotions. "I did not think you ever would." Eliana stood straighter, swallowing her shock. "The pack needed help," she answered, trying to remain neutral. "That is reason enough." Selena lowered her gaze. "I will not lie. It feels strange. Your presence is a reminder of what might have been." A pang shot through Eliana's chest, but she tried to keep her composure. "I do not wish to dwell on the past," she said. "All that matters is stopping these rogues and healing those wounded." Selena's eyes flickered with something Eliana had not expected: regret. She wrapped her robe more tightly around herself, shivering in the cool night air. "I never meant for things to turn out this way," she whispered. "I thought perhaps I was fated for him. Everyone said so. But sometimes I feel a distance between us that I cannot bridge. Perhaps I lack some deeper connection I should have." Eliana found herself at a loss. All these years, she had assumed Selena was deliriously happy with her choice. The idea that Selena felt unfulfilled rattled her. "What are you saying?" she asked softly. Selena bit her lip, glancing away. "I do not know. Perhaps I am just tired. Marcus is consumed by worry about the pack's survival. I try to help, but everything is spiraling out of control. And now that you are here, I fear you might see the cracks in what I thought was a solid foundation." Tension thickened in the air. Eliana tried to be gentle. "Selena," she began, "I came because I want to protect Silvercrest. I harbor no plan to cause trouble." Selena nodded shakily. "I know, but sometimes the truth is trouble enough." Before Eliana could reply, Selena turned and walked quickly away into the shadows. Eliana remained in the garden, heart pounding. She found herself recalling the old prophecy, the seer's words that one of the twins was destined to be the true Luna. Could it be that Selena had been living a lie all along, trying to force a role never meant for her? The swirling confusion in Eliana's mind only deepened as she stood there, the moon illuminating her twin's departing figure. In the following days, the hectic pattern repeated itself. Eliana worked tirelessly in the infirmary, commanding a level of calm authority that surprised even her old family members. She faced staggering challenges, from poison-laced wounds to curses rumored to be conjured by the rogue's hidden leader. Some nights she collapsed into a brief, uneasy rest, only to awaken with fresh determination. Word spread through the pack that Eliana was performing healing miracles, snatching wolves from the clutches of death. She found herself recognized in hushed gratitude, or with reverent stares. Yet the awkwardness with Marcus and Selena lingered like a smoldering ember that no one quite knew how to extinguish. Eventually, the pack's defensive lines stabilized. The rogues had not attempted a major incursion in several nights, possibly because so many of their victims had been healed and rejoined the patrols. Still, the threat was not gone. Rumors indicated that the rogues were regrouping on the far edge of the territory. They seemed to have an agenda far more sinister than random raids. Marcus called an emergency meeting of the pack's top fighters, strategists, and spiritual advisors. To Eliana's surprise, he summoned her as well. She entered the Alpha's war room with a mixture of curiosity and dread. The large wooden table was strewn with maps of the territory, markers indicating known rogue hideouts. Marcus stood at the head of the table, strong arms folded over his chest. Selena sat off to his right, her posture rigid, hands clenched in her lap. The rest of the council gave Eliana respectful nods as she slid into a seat. Marcus cleared his throat and began. Our scouts have spotted the rogues in increasing numbers. They attack quickly, vanish, and re-emerge in unpredictable places. This is no scattered band of outcasts. They are coordinated. An older strategist leaned over the map. We suspect they have a powerful leader. Some say he wields dark magic, which could explain the strange poisons. Selena spoke, her voice trembling slightly. If we are to survive, we must find their leader, strike at the heart of their operation. Otherwise, we will remain on the defensive forever. Marcus nodded, his gaze shifting to Eliana. Your healing has given our warriors a second chance to fight. But as we move forward, we may need more. Old legends speak of a wolf's blessing, a ritual that can amplify a werewolf's natural abilities. We are uncertain if it could help us now, but we must consider it. A hushed murmur passed through the council. The wolf's blessing was an ancient rite rumored to be granted only through the true Luna's connection to the moon goddess. But the knowledge of how to perform it had grown murky over time, lost in half-remembered stories and dusty scrolls. Marcus continued, his eyes on Eliana. You have shown an extraordinary ability to channel healing energy. Some suspect that might be related to the gift of the rightful Luna. I know it may be a difficult subject, but we need to know if you are capable of leading us through the wolf's blessing. The room fell silent. A tension built, thick as a thundercloud. Eliana's cheeks burned. She felt every eye on her, including Selena's. She did not know if she had the means to channel such a ritual. She had never attempted it. In fact, she was not even certain she was the rightful Luna. The prophecy had been ambiguous. Selena had been chosen, for better or worse. Yet that old bond tugged at Eliana's core, a persistent reminder that something deeper existed within her. I do not know how to perform the wolf's blessing, Eliana finally said, keeping her voice even. In my studies, I never came across the specifics. Only vague references that the Luna's spiritual link to the moon goddess allowed it. But I cannot say for sure if I possess such a link. Marcus exhaled slowly, nodding. We may have no choice but to try. We have an old library of artifacts and records that might hold instructions. If you are willing, we can search for the answers together. Surprised murmurs spread through the council. Selena's eyes flashed with emotion, though she kept her face carefully controlled. One of the elders, a stooped woman with wrinkles around her pale blue eyes, cleared her throat. If the wolf's blessing truly requires a rightful Luna, we must consider the possibility that the goddess did not bless Selena, but rather her twin. If that is the case, we face a deeper conundrum. An uncomfortable silence descended. No one wanted to openly challenge the Alpha's official mate, the one who had been recognized by ceremony years ago. Yet it was a possibility they could not ignore. Eliana noticed Selena's grip tighten on the armrests, and she felt a pang of pity for her sister. Marcus inhaled, looking as though each breath carried a mountain of burdens. For now, he said, our priority is survival. Whether or not the prophecy was misread is a question for another time. Right now, we will search the archives. Eliana, please guide us with your knowledge of healing. Selena, Continue coordinating the defenses. Our pack stands or falls on unity, so let us keep our focus on the threat at hand." The meeting ended on that tentative note. Some left with uncertain expressions. Others were relieved the Alpha had not chosen to delve into the matter of rightful Lunas too deeply, at least not now. Eliana departed with a sense of apprehension, her mind racing. She never sought power or position. But if the wolf's blessing was real, and if it might save the pack, she would do everything in her power to unlock it. Over the next day, she and Marcus scoured the old libraries that once served as a repository for pack lore. The musty smell of ancient leather-bound volumes filled the air. Dust motes danced in golden shafts of light from tall windows. Stacks of forgotten records teetered precariously as they searched for references to the wolf's blessing, flipping through page after page of archaic script. Selena occasionally peeked in, eyes anxious, but she said little. The tension between the three of them was as thick as the dust in the library. By midnight, Eliana found a crumbling manuscript bound with frayed twine. It spoke of an ancestral Luna who once performed the wolf's blessing to protect her pack against a devastating threat. The text read that the Luna channeled the moon goddess's energy through a set of sacred stones, and that only a heart bonded to the Alpha in spirit as well as ceremony could complete the ritual. Eliana's hands shook as she read that line, the memory of how she and Marcus had never sealed any bond flooding her mind. Selena, of course, was the one who performed the formal ceremony. But a piece of the puzzle was missing. It had to be more than a formal vow. The text repeated that the energy required a genuine spiritual and emotional bond. She shared the discovery with Marcus, who stood by her side in the flickering candlelight, reading over her shoulder. He rubbed his face, tension in every line of his body. "We have no time to dwell on regrets," he said in a low voice. "We must see if it can work. Even if it does, it may require an honest acceptance of who the rightful mate is." Eliana closed the manuscript carefully. "This is bigger than the three of us," she murmured, exhaustion evident in her tone. "If we can protect the pack by trying this, we must. But we do not know how Selena will handle it." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I will speak to her, but for now, rest. You have been pushing yourself too hard." She was about to refuse, certain that her work in the infirmary was not done, but she realized she could barely keep her eyes open. She allowed Marcus to escort her to her temporary quarters, feeling the familiar heartbreak surface as they walked side by side. She inhaled the faint scent of him, remembering how, years ago, a single whiff of his presence made her wolf stir. Despite the heartbreak, that subtle connection was still there, quietly humming in the background. She resented it, and yet found comfort in it simultaneously. At the door to her room, she hesitated, turning to face him. "Marcus," she said softly, "do you regret your choice?" He looked pained, as if the question physically hurt him. "Regret is a complicated word," he replied, voice hushed. "Selena is my mate in ceremony. I did what I believed was right for the pack, for tradition. But sometimes I think fate was calling me in a different direction, and I ignored it." Her chest tightened, and she nodded. "We cannot change the past. Let us hope we can still save the future." He gave her a faint nod, turned, and disappeared down the corridor. Eliana leaned against the door, taking a moment to compose herself before stepping inside. Her thoughts churned, an emotional storm raging in her heart. She was not sure if she could handle the pressure of attempting the wolf's blessing, but she had to try. For the sake of innocent lives, for the memory of the pack that once nurtured her, and perhaps for the small piece of her heart that still ached for the boy who chose the wrong twin. She closed her eyes, hearing the faint breeze carry the distant howl of wolves on patrol. Somewhere out there, the rogues lurked. But also, somewhere inside her, a quiet, potent power waited to be awakened. She could feel it stir in the darkness like a sleeping giant, waiting for her to find the courage to set it free. Sunlight filtered through the estate's windows the following morning, revealing a hectic scene in the corridors. Wolves bustled about, carrying messages, equipment, and healing supplies. The scent of tension was thick. Whispers of another rogue ambush circulated like an ominous wind. Eliana emerged from her room feeling weariness in her bones, yet she was resolved to press on. Marcus had summoned her to discuss the possibility of performing the wolf's blessing, and she knew that conversation would carry a heavy weight for everyone involved. She headed toward the eastern wing of the mansion, where a smaller but ornate meeting room awaited. Along the way, she glanced outside the tall windows, noticing that storm clouds were gathering in the distance. They clung to the horizon in brooding grays, an apt reflection of the looming threat. Despite her attempts to calm herself, her stomach twisted with nerves. She had reread the Wolf's Blessing manuscript in her mind throughout the night. The key requirement was that the Alpha and the rightful Luna share a bond recognized by the goddess. Without that deep unity, the ritual's power would be incomplete or possibly backfire. As she rounded a corner, she nearly collided with Selena. The older twin was leaning against a wall, head bowed. She looked exhausted. Purple shadows underlined her eyes, and her shoulders slumped with a vulnerability she never displayed in public. When she saw Eliana, she took a small step back. "Eliana," she said, voice taut, "I have been looking for you. We need to talk." Eliana nodded, noticing the fear in her sister's gaze. "Of course. Is everything all right?" Selena let out a soft, mirthless laugh. "Hardly. But I doubt anything has been all right for a while now." She ran her fingers through her tangled hair. "Marcus told me about the wolf's blessing. What the old texts say." The tension in Eliana's chest tightened. She recalled the line about how the Luna had to be bound by true fate, not just ceremony. "Then you know it might require something beyond what you and Marcus share," she said carefully, trying to sound empathetic. Selena's gaze flickered with pain. "I know. It feels like everything I feared is coming to pass. That perhaps the goddess's mark never truly rested on me, but on you." She paused, swallowing. "I can feel the distance between Marcus and me. It is like we tried to force a puzzle piece into the wrong place. For years I convinced myself it would work out. Now I see how fragile that promise always was." Eliana bit her lip, remembering the sorrow she endured when Marcus had made his choice. "Why did you never say anything?" she asked gently. Selena wrapped her arms around herself, as if trying to ward off a chill. "Because I was afraid. I wanted to be Luna. I wanted everyone's admiration. And yes, I wanted Marcus. He was mesmerizing. I think I hoped that if the ceremony made it official, the bond would deepen. That soon we would share the magical connection everyone talks about. But it never happened. He cares for me, but it is not unwavering love, not like a bond forged by fate." Sympathy warred with old anger in Eliana's heart. She had spent years nursing heartbreak, believing her sister reveled in stolen happiness. But the reality appeared more complex. "So what now?" she asked softly. A slow, trembling exhale escaped Selena's lips. "Now I have to face the truth," she whispered. "Perhaps I was the one who was wrong. Marcus and I tried to force something that was never truly blessed. Now the pack is paying for it." She hesitated, lowering her voice. "Eliana, if it turns out you are the rightful Luna, and the wolf's blessing is the only way to save us, I will step aside." The words stunned Eliana. She had never expected Selena, so prideful and self-assured in youth, to relinquish her title. But the tears brimming in Selena's eyes were genuine. She looked like someone standing on the edge of a precipice, terrified but determined to do the right thing. Eliana felt her own eyes grow damp. They were sisters after all. Despite their differences, they had shared so much. I appreciate your honesty," Eliana managed, voice thick. She placed a gentle hand on Selena's shoulder. "But let us see what the pack decides. I do not want to forcibly take anything from you. My only wish is to keep our people safe." Selena nodded, drawing in a shaky breath. "I understand. I suppose we will find out soon enough if the wolf's blessing can even be done. You had best go. Marcus is waiting for you." Eliana gave her sister a final, sympathetic look before continuing down the corridor. Her emotions churned in a tempest of sympathy, regret, and a glimmer of hope that perhaps, at last, the truth might come to light without tearing them further apart. She arrived at the meeting room to find Marcus waiting alongside 3 of the oldest pack elders. A large desk was covered in scrolls and references to the wolf's blessing. Marcus cleared his throat, gesturing for Eliana to join them. One of the elders, a stooped man named Gareth, held up an ancient parchment. "We have deciphered more details," he said. "The wolf's blessing involves a sacred site known as the Moonfire Glade. It is deep within our lands, a place only accessible to those with permission from the Alpha. If performed correctly, the ritual can strengthen the entire pack, granting heightened senses, faster healing, and a temporary shield against dark magic. But it requires a catalyst." "The rightful Luna." Eliana's stomach twisted. "Do we have a record of exactly how the ritual is performed?" Another elder, a white-haired woman named Odette, shrugged. "Only fragments. Enough to guide us, but not enough to guarantee success. The largest piece of the puzzle is the presence of a true fated bond. If that bond is not recognized by the goddess, the ritual will fail, perhaps catastrophically." Marcus stepped forward, voice firm. "We cannot afford to ignore this. Our scouts say the rogues plan to strike in full force within the week. We need every advantage possible. Therefore, Eliana, I am asking if you will attempt this ritual with me." A moment of silence stretched. Eliana's throat felt dry. She could sense her wolf stirring inside, responding to the mere idea of forging a spiritual link with Marcus. She feared the heartbreak, the reminder of what never was. But the fate of the pack hung in the balance. She exhaled, nodding. "Yes. For the sake of Silvercrest, I will." Relief warred with apprehension in Marcus's eyes. The elders bowed their heads in agreement, though no one seemed entirely sure if they were walking towards salvation or ruin. Plans were made for a small contingent to accompany the Alpha and Eliana into the depths of their territory. The next day, at first light, they would journey to the hidden Moonfire Glade. Marcus's father, who had relinquished the Alpha role to his son some time ago, remained absent from these meetings, having been badly injured in an earlier rogue attack. The responsibility fell squarely on Marcus. As the day wore on, Eliana found Selena at her side, quietly assisting with final preparations. Together, they organized medical supplies, survival gear, and the precious stones that the manuscript insisted were necessary for the ritual's focal point. The tension between them had eased into a fragile truce. Selena's gaze lingered on Marcus every time he walked by, a swirl of regret and acceptance shining in her eyes. Eliana felt an ache of compassion for her twin, who had discovered that leadership and love could be more complicated than she ever imagined. That evening, the pack gathered in the courtyard. Torchlight flickered across worried faces. A hush fell as Marcus addressed them, explaining that he and Eliana would depart at dawn to invoke an ancient blessing that could protect them all. He did not mention the question of rightful Luna. Some matters were best kept private. But the undercurrent of tension told Eliana that many already suspected the truth. When Marcus finished, the crowd dispersed into small groups, quietly discussing the significance of what was happening. Eliana felt countless eyes on her, some curious, some hopeful, some tinged with envy or disbelief. Later, in the depths of night, Eliana found herself once more in the estate gardens, the same place where she and Selina had spoken days before. This time, she heard a softer footstep behind her. She turned to see Marcus, dressed in casual attire, the lines of stress etched on his face. The moonlight seemed to wash over him, accentuating the slight slump of his broad shoulders. "You should be resting," she said quietly, pushing aside the tangle of emotions inside her chest. "Tomorrow is a big day." He walked closer, stopping a few steps away, maintaining a respectful distance. "I was about to say the same to you," he replied with a wry smile that did not fully reach his eyes. "I could not sleep. Too many thoughts." Eliana inhaled slowly, nodding. "I know the feeling." They stood in silence for a while, each gazing at the moon above. The luminescent glow lit the garden's flowers like silver fire. At length, Marcus cleared his throat, his voice low. "I want to apologize," he began. "I know we cannot change the past, but I have to say it. Years ago, I chose Selina over you, ignoring every hint my heart gave me. I wanted to do what was expected, what seemed obvious to everyone else. I thought I do not even know what I thought. Maybe that the pack's assumptions were always correct, that if Selina was more outgoing and widely admired, she had to be the one. I never asked you how you truly felt. I never listened to the quiet voice inside me that whispered. It was not right." Tears pricked Eliana's eyes, but she fought to keep her composure. "Marcus," she said softly, "it is done. We both suffered in our own ways, and we cannot undo it. But you have a pack to protect, and that comes first. My feelings come second to that." He shook his head, stepping closer. "Maybe the pack comes first, but that does not mean your pain is unimportant. I see what you have become, strong, compassionate, wise. I do not want you to think I never respected you, never cared." Her heart thudded painfully. She forced herself to meet his gaze. She saw the sincerity there, but also the despair of someone who feared it was too late to fix what he broke. "I appreciate your words," she said, voice trembling slightly, "but let us focus on tomorrow. If the wolf's blessing is successful, maybe the goddess will guide us to figure out the rest." He nodded, swallowing. "Yes," he whispered. "We should rest. Good night, Eliana." She watched him leave, tension knotting her stomach. Old scars ached anew, and a tangle of hope and fear mingled in her chest. This was not how she had ever imagined confronting him again. She wanted to preserve her resolve, to keep her heart safe. But a part of her, Wolf, the part that recognized Marcus as a fated mate, still yearned for the bond that might have been. Morning arrived sooner than expected, with the sun rising over a storm-laden sky, painting the clouds with streaks of pale gold. Eliana and a small group of pack warriors, along with Marcus, departed on horseback. Selina stood at the gates, watching them leave with a silent, stoic expression. The rest of the pack gathered around in quiet support, some holding on to hope that this journey might be the answer to their prayers. The ride was long, and arduous. The terrain grew rugged, winding through ancient forests and across rocky ridges. Towering pines loomed overhead, their branches swaying in a gusty wind. The sense of foreboding increased as they ventured deeper. Wolves accompanied them in both human and wolf form, ever vigilant for a rogue ambush. But, perhaps due to good fortune, no enemies appeared. Instead, they encountered only the haunting stillness of a place rarely visited. By midday, they reached a narrow path that curved downward into a hidden valley. Eliana felt an energy hum in the air, stirring her senses. The group dismounted, leading their horses carefully through the dense undergrowth. They followed Gareth's directions from the old maps until they arrived at a clearing surrounded by towering stone monoliths. These stones, weathered by centuries, circled a lush patch of grass and flowers that glowed with an otherworldly luminescence. In the center of the circle was a shallow pool, its waters unnaturally still and reflecting the stormy sky above. This was the Moonfire Glade. Despite the gloom in the sky, the clearing felt oddly tranquil. Eliana's wolf bristled, sensing the holiness of this ground. Marcus turned to the others. "We will stand guard here," he instructed. "Eliana and I must enter the circle alone to attempt the wolf's blessing." The warriors nodded, forming a perimeter around the stone ring, weapons ready. The swirling wind picked up, whistling through the ancient monoliths like a distant echo of centuries gone by. Eliana clutched the pouch of sacred stones. She and Marcus exchanged a determined glance. Together, they stepped beyond the circle of stones, approaching the crystalline pool at its center. Her heart thundered in her chest. She prayed silently to the moon goddess that she was doing the right thing, that her presence was truly blessed and not a tragic mistake. Marcus placed his hands on her shoulders, guiding her to kneel beside the pool. He knelt across from her, the tension radiating through his body. "I do not fully know how to do this," he murmured. "Let us trust the instructions we found, and trust the goddess to guide us." She nodded. Carefully, she arranged the sacred stones around the perimeter of the pool, each one engraved with a small symbol of the moon's phases. The manuscript had said to set them in a half circle, leaving the side facing the water open. Next, she drew a small knife from her belt, glancing at Marcus. He extended his hand without flinching. She pressed the blade to his palm, making a shallow cut. Blood welled, and he clenched his jaw as she let a few drops fall into the pool. Then, she cut her own palm, repeating the ritual. When her blood mingled with his on the surface of the water, a hush fell upon the glade, as though the wind itself were holding its breath. They placed their bleeding palms together, the warmth of skin and blood forging a link. As their hands met, Eliana felt a surge of energy jolt through her body. Her wolf senses flared. She swore she could hear the steady pulse of the earth beneath her, feel the shifting energy of the wind. Marcus must have felt it too, for his eyes widened. The water in the pool began to ripple, glowing with a faint silver light. "Eliana," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "I can feel it. A bond. Are you feeling this too?" She could barely speak. It was as though her heart had been plugged directly into the power of the moon goddess. She felt an immense presence, gentle yet commanding, enveloping them. Images flashed through her mind, a silver wolf howling at the moon, an ancient lineage protecting its territory, and a luminous figure that seemed to cradle the entire forest in glowing arms. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she said, voice trembling. "I feel it." From the corner of her vision, she saw the sacred stones flare with silvery radiance. The pool brightened until it looked like liquid moonlight. Their clasped hands burned with a pleasant warmth, as if a gentle fire coursed through their blood. A faint hum echoed among the stones, growing louder, swirling into a chanting sound that seemed both ancient and heavenly. Eliana realized it was not just in her ears, but resonating in her chest, as though the glade itself were singing. Summoning her courage, she recalled the lines from the ancient manuscript. She closed her eyes and recited them, stumbling over the archaic dialect but pouring her heart into every word. Marcus echoed her phrases, though his voice came rough, filled with emotion. The chanting hum grew, crescendoing around them until the entire clearing thrummed with sacred energy. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped around, strong enough to make the warriors outside the circle brace themselves. The pool erupted in a pillar of silver-white light. Eliana cried out, squeezing Marcus's hand tighter. She felt the presence of the moon goddess descend upon them in a rush, as though a veil had been lifted between the mortal realm and the divine. A powerful wave of magic swirled through their bodies, searing away doubts, knitting them together in a single, unbreakable current. She could sense Marcus's heartbeat, his breath, even the swirl of his thoughts. For a brief moment, she felt the raw truth of their destiny, how they were meant to stand together, Alpha and Luna, a bond forged in spirit since before their births. Tears flooded her eyes anew, this time from overwhelming awe. This was the connection she had longed for all her life, the missing piece that explained every longing in her soul. The light around them intensified, then exploded outward in a radiant wave, surging past the monoliths. A collective gasp arose from the warriors as the magic swept across the clearing, then continued outward, like the ripples of a stone dropped in a pond. Eliana sensed it would travel far beyond this place, touching every corner of Silvercrest territory. She glimpsed, in her mind's eye, wolves across the land suddenly feeling renewed strength, hidden wounds beginning to heal, battered spirits lifted with hope. The wolf's blessing had awakened. Gradually, the brilliant glow dimmed, and the clearing went quiet once more. Eliana realized she was still on her knees, one hand clasped with Marcus's, their wounds now sealed by the divine energy coursing through them. Their eyes locked, and neither could find words to speak. Finally, she broke the silence, voice quavering with profound emotion. "Marcus, He pulled her close in a reverent embrace, his breath trembling against her cheek. "I am so sorry," he whispered, tears in his own eyes. "You were always meant for this. Meant for me. I should have trusted the bond we had, the prophecy, everything." Eliana's heart felt close to bursting with both sorrow and a fragile blossoming hope. She allowed herself a moment to rest her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his arms encircle her. The wolf's blessing still hummed in her veins, a living testament to their genuine mate connection. The heartbreak had been real, but so was the power that now flourished between them. Outside the circle, the warriors began to cheer. Though they could not fully comprehend the spiritual bond, they felt its echoes. A sense of renewed unity spread through the clearing. The grim tension that had hovered over them on the journey lifted, replaced by awe. In that moment, it did not matter that Marcus was officially mated to Selena by ceremony. The pack needed this miracle. They needed Eliana's true Luna power, and now it had been unleashed. One of the warriors, a tall man named Jonah, rushed forward. "Alpha, something is happening," he exclaimed, voice shaky with excitement. "We can feel a surge of strength. The horses that were tired have perked up. The injuries from the journey seem to have disappeared. Even my sprained ankle is suddenly healed." Marcus stood, pulling Eliana up with him, their hands still entwined. He looked down at her, amazement etched on his face. "The wolf's blessing is real," he murmured. "We did it." She nodded, swallowing back tears. "Yes, but we have not finished. The rogues will come, and we must be ready." The group quickly gathered their supplies and exited the glade, anxious to return to the estate with news of their success. Eliana and Marcus rode side by side, an unspoken closeness settling between them. She glanced at the horizon, seeing the dark storm clouds rolling in faster now, as if nature itself could sense a confrontation looming. They had awakened an ancient power, but the question remained, would it be enough to overcome the rogue's dark force? As they traveled, Eliana could not help but reflect on what would happen once they returned. Selena would see them, sense the new bond they shared. Would she remain resolute in her promise to step aside for the good of the pack? Or would fear and anger tear her apart? And what of the rest of the pack, who might question the validity of a second Luna? Eliana's heart clenched at the potential turmoil ahead. Yet a whisper of confidence stirred within her, echoing the magic of the moon goddess. Whatever happened next, she was stronger now. She was not the shy, overlooked twin who trudged away in defeat. She was the rightful Luna, whether the pack publicly acknowledged it or not. They pressed onward until the Silvercrest gates came into view just before dusk. The sun dipped behind thick clouds, painting the sky in swirling shades of gray and orange. Guards at the walls let out a triumphant shout as the party approached, presumably sensing their Alpha's returning presence mingled with a curious surge of renewed pack power. Marcus and Eliana exchanged a glance, silently bracing for the reception that awaited them. When they reached the courtyard, many wolves spilled out of the estate's doors, eager to see what had transpired at the mysterious glade. Among them was Selena. She stood near the steps, hair unbound, expression shuddered. Her gaze flickered over Marcus, then landed on Eliana with a jolt of recognition. Whatever she sensed from the wolf's blessing, it hit her like a physical blow. A heartbreak of truth etched across her features. Eliana dismounted her horse, feeling a swirl of sympathy and guilt coil in her stomach. Marcus moved forward first, addressing the assembled wolves. His voice rang clear, laced with a new authority that came from a deeper sense of self-assurance. "We have succeeded in awakening the wolf's blessing," he announced. "You may already feel its effect. Your fatigue will lessen, your injuries heal faster, your senses sharpen. But this boon is temporary. The rogues will come soon, and we must stand united. Let this gift from the moon goddess grant us a fighting chance." Cheers erupted from many, relief and renewed optimism shining in their eyes. Eliana stood back, allowing Marcus to take the lead. She sensed the hush that fell when several noticed the palpable energy between her and the Alpha. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some seemed startled, others approving, but many simply looked confused. Selena, for her part, remained silent, arms crossed in a shaky stance. Eliana caught her gaze for a split second, seeing tears threatening to spill. Then Selena abruptly turned and walked back inside. Before Eliana could decide if she should follow, pack members crowded around, bombarding her with thanks and excitement. They placed hands on her shoulders, tears in their eyes, some dropping to a knee in gratitude. Eliana felt overwhelmed by the attention, unsure how to respond. All she ever wanted was to help. Now, the entire pack seemed ready to revere her. She cast an uneasy glance at Marcus, who offered a strained smile of encouragement. She gave kind words to those who approached, reminding them that every bit of healing power was a gift of the moon goddess. Eventually, the crowd began to disperse, many returning to duties or heading to spread news to their families. Marcus approached her, speaking softly to avoid drawing more attention. I need to check in with the scouts regarding the rogue's movements. Please, find some rest. And perhaps speak with Selena. She deserves an explanation, if she wants it. Eliana nodded, nerves fluttering. She could sense the final confrontation approaching, both with the rogues and within her own family. She made her way through the estate, searching for Selena in the places she might retreat to. Eventually, she found her sister in the old music room, a rarely used chamber where a dusty piano sat beneath heavy drapes. Selena stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the stormy evening sky. "Selena," Eliana said softly, shutting the door behind her. "May I come in?" Without turning, her sister nodded. The silence stretched like a taut string until Eliana stepped beside her, following her gaze out the window. Outside, the courtyard was still bustling, but the sky had turned a foreboding shade of charcoal. Occasional flashes of lightning arced across the horizon. Selena broke the silence first, voice subdued. "I felt it, you know. That surge of power when you completed the ritual. I could sense the bond between you and Marcus become real, undeniable. It took my breath away." She laughed bitterly. "All those years, I told myself I had that bond with him. But I realize now, it was just a shallow echo." Eliana's chest tightened. "I am sorry," she managed. "I never wanted to come between you two. This is bigger than any of us. If there was a way to save the pack without hurting you, I would have taken it." Selena turned, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I believe you, and I know you will be a better Luna than I could ever be. Still, that does not mean this does not hurt." She let out a shaky exhale. "I will not make a scene. The pack needs unity now more than ever. But I need time to come to terms with everything." Eliana stepped forward, tentatively resting a hand on Selena's arm. "I understand. And I am not claiming your title. If you choose to remain in your position." Selena shook her head. "It was never truly mine. The pack can sense it now, that it belongs to you. I will stand aside. I will swallow my pride and do what is right, at least once in my life." Tears pricked Eliana's eyes. She leaned in, hugging her sister for the first time in years. Selena stiffened initially, then melted into the embrace, sobbing quietly into Eliana's shoulder. They clung to each other in that quiet music room, letting the storm rage outside. Eliana realized that despite everything, the heartbreak, the envy, the misunderstandings, Selena was still her twin. She prayed the goddess might grant them a way to move forward without tearing their bond apart any further. When they finally pulled apart, Selena wiped her cheeks, mustering a shaky smile. "Go," she whispered. "The Alpha will meet you at his side. I will be all right." Eliana searched Selena's face for signs of deception, but she only saw sincerity. She nodded, giving her sister's hand a final squeeze before slipping out of the room. She walked down the corridor with a heart full of mingled sorrow and hope. Thunder rumbled overhead, as if echoing the tension in the air. The final battle with the rogues was just beyond the horizon. The pack was now bolstered by the wolf's blessing, but the outcome was far from guaranteed. She found Marcus in the command center, bent over a map with a few senior warriors. They looked up when she entered. He straightened, relief flashing across his face at the sight of her. She approached quietly, scanning the map. Symbols indicated rogue sightings. Reports suggested the enemy was massing for a large-scale assault, possibly as soon as the storm broke. "Any new information?" she asked softly, her official role in the pack leadership awkwardly unspoken but implicitly accepted by the warriors around her. Marcus tapped a location on the map near the southern border. Scouts have confirmed a large gathering of rogues here. They are planning to attack under the cover of darkness, during the storm. We have a fraction of their numbers, but hopefully the wolf's blessing will tip the scales. Eliana nodded, recalling the sense of renewed strength that had swept through her. She had to trust that same energy could protect the others in battle. Nonetheless, a prickle of dread ran down her spine. The rogue's leader had proven elusive. Rumors still persisted that he wielded dark magic, or twisted illusions that corrupted weaker wolves. She prayed that they would not underestimate him. Marcus announced his plan. Form squads of elite warriors, augmented by the wolf's blessing, to meet the rogues in open combat near the southern border. Others would flank from the east, catching the enemy off guard. He assigned tasks swiftly, the authority in his voice leaving no room for argument. Despite the tension in the room, a newfound confidence glimmered in the warriors' eyes. The presence of Eliana, standing calmly at the Alpha's side, also seemed to comfort them, as though she were an anchor of resolve. As the final preparations took shape, the storm began in earnest, rain lashing the windows and thunder shaking the walls. Marcus turned to Eliana. "Stay close to me when the battle comes," he said. "Your healing skills may be needed on the front lines. If things go south, I want to know you are safe." She smiled ruefully. "No one is truly safe in a battle, but I will do my best to stay alive and keep others alive." He gave a tight nod, pressing his hand briefly to her cheek in a tender gesture. "I cannot lose you," he murmured, the raw admission hanging in the air. She placed her hand over his, feeling that same gentle heat between them. They might never fully regain the years they lost, but at least they stood together in this critical moment. Late into the night, the pack's warriors gathered at the gates. A savage wind whipped across the courtyard, carrying stinging droplets of rain that rattled against armor and soaked through cloaks. Eliana stood among them, wearing sturdy boots and a protective jacket that allowed for agility. She carried her healing pouch slung across her shoulder, filled with potions, bandages, and the special herbs she had cultivated. This time, there were no formal speeches. The tension and sense of urgency replaced all pomp and circumstance. The gates opened, and the force set out into the stormy darkness, guided by torchlight and the glow of wolf eyes shifting to combat form. Thunder and lightning were their ominous companions as they pushed southward across muddy terrain. Despite the night's chaos, Eliana felt a heightened awareness in her senses, as if the wolf's blessing allowed her to see through the sheets of rain. She caught glimpses of shining eyes in the shadows, felt a subtle bond linking her to the rest of the pack. Marcus ran ahead in his wolf form, a massive creature with dark fur, leading the vanguard. She followed in human form for now, ready to shift if necessary. Finally, they reached a place where the forest ended in a wide clearing, a natural battleground. Shapes emerged from the darkness. Rogue wolves, snarling and pacing, eyes gleaming with malice. Their numbers were indeed massive. Eliana's heart hammered. She spotted a towering figure among them, wreathed in shadows, a malevolent aura clinging to his every move. This must be the rumored leader. A low growl spread through the Silvercrest warriors. Marcus advanced, letting out a thunderous roar. The rogues answered with feral howls. In a flash, the clearing erupted in chaos. Wolves collided in the mud, claws and fangs tearing. Rain made the ground slick. Torchlight flickered. Adrenaline surged through Eliana, who darted among the combatants, using her gifts to quickly patch bleeding wounds and revive fallen allies. She felt the wolf's blessing thrumming in her veins. Cuts that might have crippled an ordinary wolf were healing in minutes, giving the Silvercrest warriors an uncanny resilience. Yet the rogues fought with ruthless ferocity, driven by some dark hunger for destruction. Eliana glimpsed one of her packmates pinned under a savage brute. She dove forward, unleashing a snarl that surprised even herself, then jabbed a small, specially prepared mixture into the rogue's flank. The powder burst with a sharp sizzle, burning the rogue's flesh just enough to force it off the pinned wolf. Her ally scrambled to his feet, nodding in gratitude. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the battlefield in a blinding flash. For a split second, Eliana saw Marcus in wolf form, locked in combat with two rogues at once, holding his ground despite their snapping jaws. She sensed his alpha power surging. Emboldened, other Silvercrest fighters pressed forward, slowly pushing the rogues back. But the massive leader of the rogues lurked at the edges, biding his time. He seemed to be chanting under his breath, foul energy crackling in the air. A wave of nauseating magic washed over the field, making some of the Silvercrest wolves stagger. Eliana gasped, feeling her healing energies flicker. Summoning all her will, she closed her eyes and reached for the wolf's blessing, the bond she shared with Marcus. She poured that energy outward in a shimmering pulse, countering the dark magic as best she could. She sensed the roiling malevolence press against her shield, but with the pack's collective spirit behind her, she held firm. Anger twisted the rogue leader's features. He let out a twisted growl and threw himself into the fray, slashing at Silvercrest warriors. Waves of dark energy coursed around him, leaving black tendrils in the wake of his strikes. Eliana realized he was more than an ordinary wolf. Something in him was corrupt and unnatural. She rushed through the mud, ignoring the stinging rain, to get closer. If she could hamper his dark abilities, the rest might stand a chance. A sudden movement to her right caught her off guard. One of the rogue lieutenants lunged. Eliana barely sidestepped, the creature's claws slicing the air near her throat. She tried to evade a second attack, but the lieutenant was too quick. Its claw tore into her shoulder, sending her staggering. Pain flared, warm blood soaking her jacket. A savage snarl escaped her lips. She refused to be easy prey. Reaching into her pouch, she withdrew a blade coated in potent herbs and slashed the rogue's side. The creature yelped, then snarled, continuing the fight. But it was slowed, giving Eliana a chance to slip away, heart pounding. She pressed a hand to her shoulder, wincing. Calling on the wolf's blessing, she felt the pain subside. Blood flow lessened. The wound began to seal, though it left her shaky. She scanned the battlefield. Marcus had broken free from the smaller rogues and now engaged the leader directly. The Alpha took human form mid-leap, a swirl of muscle and power, tackling the enemy to the muddy ground. The rogue leader twisted like a serpent, hissing in unnatural tones. Lightning flared overhead, revealing his gaunt face and sunken, hate-filled eyes. "You think your feeble goddess can stop me?" The leader spat, conjuring a swirl of dark flames in his hands. Marcus braced himself, but the energy hit him, forcing a cry from his lips. Acrid smoke rose from where the darkness struck. "No," Eliana said firmly, stepping closer. Her voice rose over the storm. She could sense the wolf's blessing swirling around them, waiting for her to wield it. The bond between her and Marcus pulsed like a living thing. She closed her eyes, letting the blessing flow into him. Silver light shimmered around Marcus's form, healing the burn almost instantly. He sprang to his feet, eyes glowing with alpha power. Seeing this, the rogue leader let out a crazed snarl and lunged for Eliana, as if sensing the source of this healing light. She stood her ground, raising a hand in a gesture of repulsion. Before his claws could reach her, a burst of silvery luminescence erupted from her palm, sending him skidding back through the mud. The brilliance stung his corrupted essence. he screamed, staggering to his feet, dark magic swirling around him again. But now, more Silvercrest wolves converged, emboldened by the tide turning in their favor. The battle raged, but within minutes, the rogues, deprived of their leader's decisive advantage, began to break. Many fled into the forest, howling in despair. The rogue leader, cornered and weakened by the wolf's blessing, attempted one final conjuring. Black sparks crackled in the air, but an elite fighter tackled him from behind, delivering a punishing blow that shattered the spell. With a roar, Marcus lunged in, driving a blade into the leader's chest. The corrupted wolf's eyes bulged in shock. Then he slumped, the final vestiges of foul energy dissipating in the rain. A hush fell over the clearing as the remaining rogues scattered in disarray. Mud clung to Eliana's clothes, and blood matted her hair, but victory sang in her veins. She rushed to Marcus, who knelt beside the fallen rogue leader, breath coming in ragged gasps. His eyes were wild, adrenaline coursing through him. She reached him, slipping an arm around his shoulders. He met her gaze, relief flooding his features. They had done it. The wolf's blessing had tipped the balance. Silvercrest lived another day. All around them, wounded wolves were being tended. Some slumped in the mud, exhausted but alive. Others cheered or howled triumphantly at the stormy sky. Lightning continued to fork overhead, illuminating the carnage. Eliana felt tears of gratitude mix with the rain on her cheeks. She pressed her forehead to Marcus's, both of them soaked to the bone. For a moment, the weight of heartbreak and regret lifted, replaced by a raw, fierce pride. They had fought side by side, Alpha and Luna, in spirit if not in official ceremony. The goddess had answered their call. Marcus's arms tightened around her, and he whispered hoarsely, "We did it. The pack is safe because of you." She shook her head, ignoring the throbbing pain in her shoulder. "It is because of us," she replied softly, pressing a trembling kiss to his brow. "You, me, and everyone who believed in our bond, even if it came too late." He cradled her face, the storm raging around them. "It is not too late," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. Before she could respond, he kissed her, a desperate, rain-soaked kiss that spoke of longing, apology, and the promise of a new beginning. She melted into him, her heart pounding like thunder, the wolf's blessing humming in her very bones. When they finally broke apart, the chaos of the battlefield still surrounded them. But the sound of the storm felt like a cleansing wash now, an exultant drumbeat marking their triumph. The battered Silvercrest warriors rallied around the Alpha and Eliana, and a great howl went up among the wolves, a communal cry of victory and survival. Eliana let the moment carry her, her gaze locked with Marcus. There was a reckoning yet to come, with Selena, with the pack, with the question of leadership. But for this singular moment, she allowed herself to embrace the reality that she was no longer the rejected twin. She was part of the future of Silvercrest, a future she intended to shape with compassion and resolve. Lightning struck a distant tree, illuminating the final scattering of rogues as they vanished into the dark forest. Thunder rumbled like the voice of the moon goddess herself, and Eliana silently thanked her for this second chance, for giving them all the strength to fight back the darkness. The storm might continue to rage, but a new dawn was on the horizon. Though scars remained, the pack had found its rightful Luna, and she was no longer afraid to claim her place among them. The night of the rogues' defeat became a tale that Silvercrest wolves would whisper of for generations. Rain pelted the battered clearing, washing away blood and grime, as thunder echoed in the distance. Through that downpour, the victorious pack supported one another, half limping, half cheering, a collective sense of relief and amazement pulsing in every heartbeat. Though the hush of the retreating storm seemed to offer momentary peace, every survivor knew the price of the battle had been steep. Many wolves nursed grievous wounds. Some had lost friends, some had seen darkness unlike anything they ever believed possible. Yet their hearts were buoyed by a new luminous bond that permeated the pack, a spiritual blessing they felt through the rightful Luna. As soon as the immediate threat was contained, Eliana moved among the injured, her healing touch bolstered by the wolf's blessing coursing through her veins. Despite her own wound, the energy radiating from within renewed her strength each time she felt ready to collapse. She crouched beside wounded wolves, pressing her hands gently over claw marks or twisted limbs, guiding the healing magic that had awakened in her. All the while, Marcus coordinated the remaining warriors, making certain the rogue survivors had truly fled. Silvercrest wanted no second ambush, not after coming so close to ruin. Eventually, the battered but unbroken pack made the long trek back to the estate, guided by torchlight in the early morning hours. The storm clouds gradually receded, leaving only the gentle patter of lingering rain. Dawn shimmered in watery hues along the horizon, painting the soaked fields with a faint glow of pink and gold. Sentries hurried to open the gates for them, eager to see which of their relatives and friends had made it home alive. A mix of sorrowful cries and shouts of joy echoed as families reunited, many clinging to their returning loved ones. Eliana's heart clenched at the sight. She let the wave of emotions wash over her, determined to keep her composure. The tragedy of lost pack members needed mourning, but so did the pack need hope for a brighter future. Wolves in their human forms flooded the courtyard. Marcus, still in command, directed the severely injured to the infirmary. Eliana followed, assisting with immediate triage in the wide corridor outside the medical chamber. Through those bustling moments, she spotted Selena slipping among the crowd, offering each newcomer water, a fresh blanket, or words of concern. She appeared shaken, but resolute. At one point, their eyes briefly met. Selena gave a small nod, as though acknowledging Eliana's role in keeping the pack safe. Eliana dipped her head in silent gratitude. Words seemed unnecessary for the moment, overshadowed by the pressing tasks at hand. Well into the morning, Eliana worked ceaselessly. The estate's infirmary overflowed with the injured. Though the wolf's blessing had bolstered many, some wounds required more than an amplified healing factor, especially when dark magic had been involved. Determined to save every life she could, she prepared specialized potions, swiftly directing other healers in the correct method to administer them. The knowledge she gathered during her years away proved invaluable. She showed them how to use certain rare herbs to draw out lingering tainted energies, how to apply healing poultices in carefully layered bandages. The staff began to look upon her with awe. Far from mere rumor, they saw a leader in her who matched knowledge with compassion. Eventually, exhaustion took its toll. Eliana found herself leaning against a wall, her shoulder throbbing where the rogue lieutenant had slashed her. She reached for the wolf's blessing once again, feeling the comforting surge of warmth in her bones. The pain ebbed, though the wound would leave a thin scar as a permanent reminder of that brutal night. She pushed her sweat-damp hair off her brow, glancing around for the next patient. One of the medics approached her, trying to guide her to a chair. "You need to rest," he insisted gently, seeing her unsteady stance. She opened her mouth to protest, but a familiar voice spoke before she could reply. "Listen to him," Marcus said, coming up behind her. His expression was stern. "If you collapse, you will be of no help to anyone." She let out a long breath, reluctantly conceding. "Fine," she murmured, "but only for a moment." With that, She allowed the medic to lead her toward a small office adjoining the infirmary. Marcus followed, closing the door behind them to give a shred of privacy to talk. The hush in the room contrasted sharply with the chaos echoing from the hallway. It was a small space, with a tidy desk, a few shelves of dusty ledgers, and a worn sofa. Marcus gestured for her to sit on the sofa, then knelt in front of her, hands hovering near her knees. "Let me see your shoulder," he said quietly. His concern was plain in his eyes. Eliana felt a stirring of heat in her chest as she allowed him to slide the jacket from her shoulder, revealing the blood-stained fabric and a partially healed cut beneath. She winced as he carefully peeled the soaked bandage aside. "It is not as bad as it looks," she insisted. "I already took care of the worst of it." But Marcus shook his head, exhaling in dismay at the sight of torn flesh. He tore a piece of fresh gauze from a supply kit, dipping it in a mild antiseptic solution. Gently, he dabbed at the wound. She hissed at the sting, but a golden warmth from their shared bond soothed the pain almost instantly. He lifted his eyes to hers. "We have been through so much," he said softly, voice brimming with tenderness and regret. "Thank you for saving us out there. You turned the tide, Eliana." She let out a shaky breath, meeting his gaze. "It is not me alone. Everyone fought bravely. I just did my part." He laid a fresh bandage carefully over the wound, smoothing it against her skin. "It was more than that," he said, standing and lowering himself onto the sofa beside her. "You gave the pack hope. You united us in a way I never managed to do on my own. Without you, we would have been lost." The sincerity in his tone made her heart ache. Memories flickered through her mind. The heartbreak from years ago, the sense of rejection, the lonely journey of self-discovery. Now, here they were, bound not only by the wolf's blessing, but by the raw truth of a fate they had tried to deny. She let her head tilt back against the sofa. "I am just relieved we can face tomorrow without fear of being slaughtered in our own land." He reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "And what about us?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "We cannot ignore what happened in the glade, what you and I share. But Selena, the pack, the ceremony we already had years ago, these things are complicated." A pang of tension pulled at Eliana's chest. She had avoided this conversation out of necessity, focusing on survival and healing. But with the rogues beaten back, the question of leadership and their rightful bond could not remain unresolved forever. "Selena and I spoke," she murmured, eyes fluttering shut. "She admitted she does not truly share that deep connection with you. She is willing to step aside for the good of the pack, if that is what needs to be done." Marcus exhaled, nodding slowly. "That must have been difficult for her." "It was," Eliana agreed. "She is hurting." She opened her eyes, giving him a meaningful look. "We cannot let her be cast out either. She is still part of the pack. She is still my sister. I do not want her to suffer just because fate took us in a different direction." He squeezed her hand gently. "I understand. I will not let that happen. She has served as Luna with devotion for years, whether she was destined for it or not. She deserves respect." His brow furrowed with concern. "But we have to honor the truth. The elders will want an official statement about who stands beside me as Luna, especially after the display of power they witnessed." Eliana's breathing hitched. She gazed at the floor, considering the enormity of it. To become Luna was not just an honorary title. It was a commitment to guide the pack, to shoulder the burdens of leadership, to be the voice of wisdom and empathy. She had always been reticent about taking on such a public role. Yet a quiet, deep part of her soul burned with the certainty that she had been born for this, to protect her people, to stand at the Alpha's side, to heal and to lead. "I will do it," she said at last, drawing in a fortifying breath. "If the elders confirm that is what the pack needs, and if you believe in us, I will accept. But only on the condition that Selena is allowed to keep her dignity and a place of respect in the pack. I do not want her exiled in shame." "Oh." Marcus reached out, turning her face toward him so he could look into her eyes. "I promise she will not be disgraced," he said firmly. "But you, Eliana, you belong here. I see that now. I only pray you can forgive me for not seeing it sooner." She felt tears sting behind her eyelids. Too many emotions stirred for her to reply. Instead, she let her fingers tighten around his, the electric bond humming between them. She breathed in his familiar scent, feeling the faint primal comfort it offered. Although regrets about the past still lingered, a sense of cautious optimism bloomed. Life seldom offered perfect resolutions, but they had a chance to mend what was broken. They sat like that for a short while, silently leaning on one another. Then, voices in the corridor grew louder, drawing their attention back to the present. Still exhausted, Eliana stood, bracing herself with one hand against the desk. "We should see if anyone else needs help," she said softly. Marcus nodded, rising to his feet. "I have to meet with the elders soon. They will want details on the battle and on the wolf's blessing." He hesitated, gaze worried. "And on us." A flicker of anxiety rippled through Eliana, but she forced a determined nod. "Let them ask. We will face it together." He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. Then they exited the office, stepping back into the swirling chaos of post-battle recovery. Wolves brushed past them with bandages, potions, medical supplies. Despite the lingering tension in the halls, Eliana sensed that something had shifted. Friends embraced one another in relief. The heaviness of fear was replaced by a trembling hope. She offered warm, reassuring words to those she passed, continuing to patch up minor injuries. Marcus headed to his father's chambers, where the elders had begun to assemble. They parted with a lingering glance, each weighed down by the new responsibilities that lay ahead. Hours blurred by in a haze of medical duties. Finally, sometime in the late afternoon, a quiet messenger approached Eliana, informing her that the elders requested her presence in the main hall. Feeling a tight knot of apprehension, she wiped her hands clean on a rag and hurried down the corridors. She found the grand doors open, the hall still decorated with old tapestries, though many were stained with the dust and grime left by the swirling chaos of the last few days. The elders gathered around a long table, each wearing somber expressions. Marcus stood at the far end, arms folded over his chest. Selena lingered near the side, her face drawn but resolute. A scattering of other senior wolves stood against the walls, apparently invited to witness what might become a pivotal decision. Odette, the white-haired elder with sharp blue eyes, beckoned for Eliana to stand before them. "We owe you our gratitude," she began, voice quavering with age. "Your gift has saved many lives. Few among us doubt the authenticity of your bond to the Alpha. Still, we must discuss how to proceed with pack protocol." Marcus stepped forward, jaw taut. "Selena and I have spoken privately," he announced. "She acknowledges that our bond lacks the spiritual seal granted by the moon goddess. In light of that, and because of the wolf's blessing displayed in battle, we propose that Eliana assume the role of Luna, fulfilling the rightful place that was always intended." A hush rippled through the hall. Some watchers nodded in agreement. Others seemed uneasy, no doubt worried about the scandal of reversing a formal mate claim. But Selena, head bowed, stepped up to stand beside Marcus. She inhaled slowly, lifting her voice for all to hear. "I stand by this decision," she said. Though tears shimmered in her eyes, her posture remained poised. "I served as Luna to the best of my ability, but the goddess mark was never truly mine. If the pack must have a rightful Luna to thrive, then let Eliana be recognized as such. I relinquish my title willingly." The final words hung in the air like a soft echo. A sorrowful respect flickered through the eyes of many who had known Selena for years. At last, one of the elders, a quiet man named Darius, cleared his throat. "If that is your decision, we will not stand against it. But the pack will need clarity. The elders must bless this transition. We will call for a formal recognition ceremony as soon as possible, to cement Eliana's place as Luna in both tradition and in the eyes of the moon goddess." A light wave of hushed voices rippled across the hall. Some seemed to breathe easier at the confirmation, while others fidgeted, no doubt grappling with the abrupt shift. Eliana felt her entire body quiver as she realized the magnitude of what was happening. She had not expected the pack to accept the change so quickly. Perhaps seeing the wolf's blessing in action had left little room for doubt. Odette gently rapped her knuckles on the table, signaling attention. "In the meantime, Selena will step down but remain an honored member of the Leadership Council. If she so chooses, she may help the pack transition to the rightful Luna's guidance. We must remain united. Dark forces have been beaten back but not obliterated. Let us not allow petty quarrels to weaken us." Further, Selena gave a grateful nod at the mention of staying on the council. Her eyes flicked to Eliana. Their gazes locked, sharing a fragile moment of kinship. Something unspoken passed between them. Regret, acceptance, and even relief. Selena seemed to relax a fraction, as though a burden she had carried for years had finally lifted from her shoulders. Marcus lifted his head, addressing everyone in the hall. "Our immediate concerns remain the security of our territory and the healing of our wounded. Let us not forget those who sacrificed everything last night. We will hold a memorial vigil soon. For now, though, we must see to the pack's welfare. Any questions about leadership can be brought to the elders for discussion." He paused, turning his eyes on Eliana. "And after the recognition ceremony, we will stand side by side, Alpha and Luna. Let it be done." A quiet hush settled. Though no one cheered, perhaps out of respect for the many who had died, there was a wave of relief and renewed optimism. The tension that had plagued Silvercrest for years, ever since Selena's ill-fated claiming, seemed at last to find resolution. Eliana's heart raced. She inclined her head respectfully to the elders, then turned to Selena, who offered a faint smile in return. When the meeting concluded, the group dispersed. Some lingered to speak with Selena, others to approach Eliana and Marcus with congratulations or requests. Eliana found herself caught in a swirl of voices, pack members asking after their loved ones, healers seeking her advice on advanced treatments, curious onlookers wanting to see the true Luna up close. She tried to remain calm, answering questions gently, but the magnitude of the attention overwhelmed her. For someone who had once avoided the limelight, it felt like standing at the center of a bonfire. As twilight approached, Eliana excused herself, slipping away from the bustling corridors and ducking outside to the quiet courtyard. The last remnants of daylight painted the sky with lavender and soft orange. She inhaled deeply, welcoming the cool air against her cheeks. She walked along the pebbled path, passing the statue of the moon goddess, now gleaming under the first flickers of starlight. Memories tugged at her mind. The night she had left Silvercrest, the dusty roads through foreign territories, the heartbreak she carried like a heavy chain. Yet here she was, set to assume the position many believed had been hers since birth. A swirl of conflicting emotions rolled through her. Excitement, fear, sadness, and hope. A rustle of footsteps caught her attention. She turned to see Selena approaching from the mansion's side entrance. Her sister hesitated, as though uncertain she was welcome. Eliana offered a tentative smile. "It is peaceful out here," she said. "Better than the noise inside." Selena nodded, coming closer. She wore a simple dress, her hair in a loose braid. Gone were the extravagant gowns she once sported, a reflection of her own shift in role. For a moment, they stood in silence, gazing at the statue. Then Selena let out a quiet sigh. "I have never felt so unburdened, yet so utterly lost," she admitted. "I thought relinquishing the title would devastate me, but I feel oddly lighter. Still, I do not know my place anymore." Eliana's heart softened. She reached out, gently taking her sister's hand. "Your place can be whatever you choose," she replied. "You spent years serving in a capacity that might not have been right for you, but that does not mean you have no value. You are still the same bold, capable woman you always were." Selena inhaled shakily. "Perhaps. But I look back on how I acted, how I enjoyed the attention, and I cringe. It hurts to realize I stood in the way of a destiny that was never meant for me. I saw the bond you and Marcus shared, even when we were younger, but my pride, my desire, blinded me. Do you resent me?" Eliana looked at their joined hands. In the dappled glow of the courtyard lanterns, the two sisters' hands looked almost identical, a reminder of their shared appearance and blood. "I used to," she admitted softly. "I was angry for a long time. But life is not simple, Selena. We were raised in a world of high expectations, assumptions, and rumors. It was not just you who believed you were the rightful Luna. The entire pack did. Even I assumed it for a while." Selena's eyes glimmered with tears. "Does that mean you forgive me?" Eliana squeezed her hand. "I do. We cannot change the past, but we can try to move forward without letting bitterness consume us." She paused, glancing at the statue, then back at her sister. "Thank you for being brave enough to admit the truth. I know that must have been hard." Selena exhaled a breath she had been holding, tears tracking down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "I hope one day I can truly atone for any pain I caused you." A tentative warmth eased through Eliana's chest. She stepped forward and embraced Selena under the emerging starlight. They clung to each other as the breeze carried the faint scent of damp earth. For the first time since childhood, they stood together without rivalry poisoning the air between them. Eliana felt a surge of gratitude. If the wolf's blessing could heal the pack's wounds, perhaps it could also mend the rift in their family. Eventually, they pulled apart, and Selena offered a watery smile. "You should rest. The elders plan a recognition ceremony soon, do they not?" Eliana nodded, stepping back. "They want it done within the next 2 days, before the wolf's blessing fades from the pack's immediate memory. Symbolic momentum, they say." She gave a small, sheepish smile. "Honestly, the idea of another ceremony is daunting. I do not want it to feel like some spectacle in the wake of so many losses." Selena touched her arm gently. "It need not be a celebration of your ascension alone. It can be a dedication to those we lost, a promise that the pack stands stronger together now. Maybe you and Marcus can shape the ceremony into something meaningful." Eliana considered that, feeling a rush of relief. "That is a good idea," she said, stepping away from the statue. "We should honor the fallen. We cannot let their sacrifices be overshadowed." With that mutual understanding, they parted ways. Selena headed inside, likely to gather supplies to help the remaining injured. Eliana took one last look at the courtyard, the statue, and the moon that was now peeking from behind thinning clouds. The breeze felt cool against her skin. She silently pledged to use her new position for the pack's good, not just for empty titles or personal ambition. She thought of the old seer's prophecy from years ago, the cryptic words that had shaped her life. Perhaps, at last, the prophecy had found its resolution. With a deep, settling breath, she turned and walked back into the estate, carrying hope in her heart. The next day dawned with a somber mood hanging over the pack. As the sun rose, so did a collective sense of grief for those who had been lost in the battle. At the Alpha's request, a memorial service took place in the estate's largest courtyard, where tall trees encircled a patch of soft grass. Wolves gathered in silent rows, many wearing black sashes or carrying small tokens of remembrance. A hush fell over the assembly as Marcus, accompanied by Eliana and several elders, stood in front of a series of newly dug graves. The Alpha wore a stark, plain outfit, no ornate embroidery, no formal regalia. The only mark of his status was the subtle insignia of a wolf's head pinned at his chest. He spoke in a steady, resonant tone, acknowledging the bravery of the fallen warriors, the families they left behind, and the pack's collective debt to their courage. One by one, loved ones stepped forward to place flowers or personal mementos at the graves. Eliana stood slightly to the side, heart heavy with sorrow and empathy, quietly offering support to anyone who came near. When the final tribute was laid, Marcus turned to address the crowd again. "We cannot bring them back," he said, his voice gruff. "But we can live in a way that honors their memory. Let our unity and compassion be a shield, so that none are forgotten in the shadows of conflict." With that, the crowd dispersed in a slow, hushed manner. Eliana lingered until the last mourner had walked away, lost in thought. She spotted a small group of children near one of the graves, tears streaking their cheeks as they clutched each other's hands. She knelt down, trying to speak gentle words that might comfort them. The words could not heal such a wound fully. She sensed that the presence of an empathetic ear might soften their pain. As she rose, Selena joined her, the two sisters offering a quiet embrace to the grieving children before guiding them back to waiting family members. In that simple act, Eliana felt another wave of gratitude for Selena's willingness to remain at her side, not as a rival, but as a pillar of support. Later that same day, the pack turned its attention to the upcoming recognition ceremony. Despite the lingering grief, the elders believed they should not delay. Dark forces in the world would not pause out of courtesy for Silvercrest's mourning. The people needed closure and a clear statement of leadership. Marcus and Eliana spent hours with key council members, planning the ceremony's structure. They wanted something less lavish than the typical Luna anointing. Instead, they planned an intimate, meaningful ritual that acknowledged the pack's losses and pledged a new chapter for the future. When night fell again, the entire territory buzzed with subdued anticipation. Wolves arrived from outlying regions, and the estate's grounds filled with those eager to witness this historical moment. Lanterns glowed along the walkways, reflecting soft light on the freshly washed stone. Tents had been set up in case of rain, though the weather seemed calm for now. The faint scent of incense drifted on the breeze, mingling with the crisp smell of pine. Eliana slipped away from the main bustle to prepare herself in a small chamber off the estate's corridor. She wore a simple yet elegant gown of pale silver, its flowing fabric reminiscent of moonlight. Her hair, normally pulled back in practical buns or braids, was arranged loosely around her shoulders in gentle waves. A single delicate chain around her neck held a moonstone pendant, an heirloom the old seer had once said belonged to the rightful Luna of the Blackwood family. She stared at her reflection in a polished mirror, heart pounding with the magnitude of what was about to happen. A soft knock at the door made her turn. Expecting Selena, or perhaps one of the older she-wolves, she was surprised to see Marcus step in quietly, wearing a formal outfit of dark gray that enhanced his imposing physique. He offered a small, nervous smile. "Am I allowed in?" he asked. "I realize it might be breaking some tradition of not seeing the Luna before the ceremony, but I needed to speak with you." Eliana let out a breathless laugh. "I do not mind. Traditions aside, there have been enough secrets. We can share this moment." He crossed the room in a few strides, his eyes reflecting admiration. "You look radiant," he murmured, gently tracing his fingertips across the moonstone pendant. "Are you anxious?" Her gaze flicked downward. "A bit," she admitted. "But I keep reminding myself that this is what fate intended. It just took us a while to get here." He wrapped his arms around her, drawing her into a warm embrace. She let her cheek rest against his chest, savoring the steady beat of his heart. "I will stand beside you every step," he promised, voice earnest. "After we finish this recognition, I want to truly begin again, to give our bond the chance it should have had. I want to right the wrongs of the past." She closed her eyes, letting a soft smile surface. "We do not have to rush anything," she said quietly. "But I would like that, too." They remained that way for a fleeting minute, letting their shared heartbeat calm their nerves. Then a faint knock echoed again, and Selena's voice came from behind the door. "Marcus, you are needed outside for the final check, and Eliana, it is nearly time." He gave Eliana's hands a gentle squeeze, then stepped away. She watched him exit, grateful for his comforting presence. A moment later, Selena slipped into the room, holding a small wreath of delicate silvery flowers. She approached with a shy smile. "These are called night blooms," she explained. "They open only under moonlight. I found them at the edge of the greenhouse. I thought they would be fitting for the rightful Luna." With that, she gently placed the wreath in Eliana's hair, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. "You look beautiful," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. Eliana's throat tightened. She reached to grasp Selena's hand, gratitude welling up inside her. "Thank you," she managed, "for this and for everything." They shared a brief, tender moment, two sisters who had walked a long, tangled road. Then a distant chime rang, signaling that the ceremony would begin. Selena led Eliana down the corridor, stepping aside at the threshold of the courtyard, leaving Eliana to walk forward alone. Taking a steadying breath, Eliana emerged into the open air. Rows of wolves lined the courtyard, each holding small candles that cast a soft, wavering glow. At the far end, an elevated platform had been constructed. Marcus stood there, flanked by Odette and two other elders. The entire crowd fell into respectful silence as Eliana approached. The hush was profound, broken only by the faint rustle of wind through the trees. Torchlight reflected off the estate's walls, making the night bloom wreath glimmer atop her hair. When she reached the platform, Marcus extended a hand, guiding her gently up the steps. Once she stood at his side, the elders turned to face the crowd. Odette's voice, despite her age, resonated clearly across the courtyard. "We gather here to recognize the moon goddess will in naming the rightful Luna of Silvercrest. Through trial and heartbreak, through adversity and triumph, we have witnessed the power bestowed upon Eliana. We honor the vow that she and Marcus share, a bond sealed by the wolf's blessing. Darius, the male elder, stepped forward next. Many among us saw the miracle at the Moonfire Glade. We also witnessed how that blessing aided our warriors in battle. For centuries, the rightful Luna has been said to channel the goddess' strength in times of dire need. Tonight, we pledge our loyalty to Eliana, that she may guide and protect us, not as a mere figurehead, but as one who embodies the moon. Goddess compassion. The hush deepened, charged with emotion. Marcus turned toward Eliana, holding out his palms. She placed her hands in his, feeling the slight tremor of excitement and nerves. Their eyes met, and she felt that same flutter in her chest, the quiet confirmation of what her heart had always known. He inhaled, voice steady but thick with feeling. Eliana, do you accept the responsibility of Luna to stand beside me in leading Silvercrest? Will you protect our people, uphold our traditions, and honor the will of the moon goddess? She swallowed hard, searching his gaze, then the faces of the gathered wolves. She saw sorrow, anticipation, curiosity, but also genuine hope. She tightened her grip on his hands. I do, she said softly, her voice echoing in the hush. I will serve this pack with all the strength and compassion the moon goddess grants me. I will put our people's well-being before my own fears, and I will strive to heal the wounds within us, both seen and unseen. Odette nodded in approval. She produced a small chalice from a nearby table, its surface etched with crescent moons. Inside, water shimmered faintly under the torchlight. She handed it to Eliana. Drink, she instructed, as the ancients did, to accept the Luna's bond in the presence of pack and goddess. Eliana raised the chalice to her lips, heart hammering. The water had a subtle, sweet flavor, leaving a cool, tingling sensation down her throat. She passed it to Marcus, who took a sip as well, linking their bond in a symbolic gesture. The crowd watched with rapt attention. Then, in unison, Eliana and Marcus lifted their joined hands. A faint ripple of silvery light passed between them, a gentle echo of the wolf's blessing that stirred the hearts of every observer. There were no loud cheers, but a collective sigh of awe, as if the entire pack released a breath they had been holding for years. With that, Odette spoke in a resonant tone. Eliana is henceforth recognized as Luna of the Silvercrest pack. May her bond with our Alpha lead us into a future of protection, unity, and hope. A wave of war relief and excitement washed over the courtyard. Wolves murmured among themselves. Some, led by older traditions, bent a knee or bowed their heads in respect. Selena, standing at the front of the crowd, offered a watery smile of encouragement. Eliana's parents, Jacob and Catherine, were present as well, tears of pride shining in their eyes. They had not been heavily featured these last days, but their love for their daughters remained a quiet, steady undercurrent. At last, Marcus turned to face the assembled pack, pulling Eliana to his side. He paused, searching for the right words. When he spoke, his voice was calm yet fierce with conviction. Silvercrest has suffered and endured. We have lost loved ones, but we have also gained a renewed bond blessed by the moon goddess herself. With Eliana as Luna, I am confident in our path forward. Let this night mark a turning point, where sorrow gives way to resolve, and old misunderstandings fade into unity. Together, we are strong. A hush lingered, and then, at the prompting of one of the council members, the crowd released a single, harmonious howl. It began as a low hum and rose into the sky, mingling with the quiet starlight. Eliana's wolf stirred in her chest, and she felt tears prick her eyes at the raw beauty of it. This was not a night for raucous cheering, it was a night for solemn promise. She squeezed Marcus's hand, giving him a small nod, knowing they had taken a monumental step. As the crowd dispersed, a subdued but hopeful atmosphere lingered. Some came forward to offer personal acknowledgments, a gentle clasp of hands, a bow, a quiet word of congratulations. Eliana returned each greeting with genuine gratitude, though fatigue tugged at her. The flurry of emotion and ceremony left her feeling as though she floated on a tide of adrenaline. At last, the courtyard began to empty, with pack members heading back to their homes or lodging rooms. Marcus steered Eliana gently away from the platform, guiding her under a quiet alcove where a trailing vine offered privacy. There, the lanterns glowed softly, illuminating their faces in delicate golden light. He studied her with warm admiration. "It is done," he murmured, lifting a hand to brush a curl away from her cheek. "How do you feel, Luna?" She let out a shaky breath, still reeling from the whirlwind of it all. "Relieved, yet frightened," she admitted. "This title carries so much responsibility. What if I stumble?" His lips curved into a gentle, reassuring smile. "We will stumble together then," he replied. "And we will stand together too. The bond we share now is an anchor for both of us. You will not face this alone." Eliana's heart swelled. She raised her eyes to meet his, the memory of heartbreak now woven with the bright thread of a second chance. Overwhelmed by gratitude and a quiet, overwhelming affection, she leaned forward, pressing a tender kiss to his lips. He returned it softly, savoring the moment. The faint hum of the wolf's blessing pulsed at the edge of her senses, reminding her of the divine presence that bound them. Perhaps they had taken the long way around fate, but she sensed that the moon goddess, in her wisdom, had allowed them to learn and grow from those trials. They broke apart as a figure emerged from the shadows. Selena, her posture hesitant. She offered a small smile, glancing from Eliana to Marcus. "Sorry to interrupt," she said quietly, "but the elders need a final word with you both about reorganizing the leadership council. The night is not quite over." Marcus let out a small laugh, tinged with exhaustion. "A leader's duties never cease." Eliana squeezed his hand and smiled at her sister. "We will handle it," she said, stepping forward. "Come on, then. Let us get through this together." Selena nodded, joining them as they walked back toward the mansion. The three of them side by side, each carrying a different weight, but united in purpose for the first time in many years. Overhead the moon shone, a bright circle in the quiet night sky, as though the goddess herself was smiling upon this newfound unity. In the days that followed the recognition ceremony, Silvercrest slowly found its balance. The immediate threat from the rogues had receded, courtesy of the decisive battle and the demise of their sinister leader. The trolls still roamed the borders, but encounters with stray rogues were rare and quickly handled. With those fears at bay, the pack turned inward, focusing on rebuilding what had been lost or damaged by the attacks. Several farms on the outskirts needed repairs, and the families of the fallen required emotional support and practical aid. Under Marcus's direction, groups of volunteers set out each morning, offering manual labor, bringing supplies, and ensuring no one suffered alone. For her part, Eliana embraced her new role as Luna with cautious determination. She established open gatherings twice a week where pack members could speak freely about their concerns, be it loss, territory management, or personal grievances. She discovered a talent for listening, diffusing tensions with empathy, and guiding the council to propose fair solutions. Selena remained a key advisor, using her familiarity with the pack's administrative details to help Eliana navigate the mountain of responsibilities that came with leadership. Though some wolves remained uncertain about the sudden transition, seeing Selena and Eliana work side by side eased most doubts. They were gradually finding a rhythm as sisters turned allies. Meanwhile, Marcus shouldered his duties as Alpha with renewed vigor. The wolf's blessing had left him feeling more attuned to his inner wolf, and that connection reflected in how he led the trolls and maintained discipline among the warriors. He was not a distant commander. Often, Eliana would see him out at dawn, running with the scouts, evaluating the territory's boundaries, ensuring that the pack's morale did not flag. One late afternoon, Eliana finished a meeting with several older healers in the estate's library, discussing ways to incorporate her herbal remedies into the official medical regimen. As she emerged into the hallway, she saw Selena leaning against the wall, arms folded, apparently waiting. "Busy day?" Eliana asked softly, wiping her brow. Selena nodded, pushing off the wall. "Busy, yes. But I wanted to find you." She hesitated, shifting from foot to foot. "A few of the senior council members are pressing me to resume some formal position or title, something more substantial than advisor. They think it is odd for the previous Luna to fade into the background. But I am not sure if that is what I want." Eliana tilted her head, considering. "Do you have any interest in a specific role? Maybe you could focus on an area that really calls to you, like overseeing the education of young wolves or managing our alliances with neighboring packs. You have the charisma for it." A thoughtful frown crossed Selena's brow. "I do enjoy dealing with alliances. Traveling, forging connections. Perhaps negotiating trade routes or treaties with other packs." A subtle sparkle lit her eyes. "That might be a good fit. I have always liked meeting new people." Eliana smiled, relieved to see her sister show enthusiasm. "Then we can create a role for you that reflects that. An ambassador, or something similar. We need strong ties beyond our borders, especially after what we just endured." Selena exhaled, nodding slowly. "Yes, I believe that is what I will do. At least for now." She paused, glancing away. "Thank you for encouraging me. Sometimes I feel like I am intruding, but you never push me out." Eliana reached to squeeze Selena's hand. "We are sisters, and we are better together." That fleeting tenderness told Eliana how far they had come. She recalled nights from childhood when Selena's reckless spirit had made her both exasperating and captivating. Now, they had a chance to channel those qualities into something positive for the pack. With a soft smile, Eliana said goodbye, parting ways to carry on their tasks for the evening. Later, as dusk settled, Eliana found Marcus in his private study, a moderately sized room lit by a single chandelier and lined with rows of neatly arranged books. He stood by a large window, gazing out at the darkening sky where streaks of purple and orange clung to the horizon. He turned when he heard her enter, a small smile curving his lips. "Any progress on repairing the farmland by the southern lake?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. He nodded. "Yes. The teams have rebuilt most of the fences, and some of the younger wolves are helping harvest early. Supplies are stable for now." He paused, studying her face. "How about you? I heard you have been reorganizing the medical system." Eliana stepped closer, letting the warmth of his presence comfort her. "We are making changes. The older healers accept my new techniques, though they worry about straying too far from tradition. Still, they cannot argue with the results." Marcus reached for her hand, drawing her toward the window. That is what we are doing in every sense, I suppose, he said quietly, looking out at the estate grounds. Balancing tradition with the realization that times have changed. Our pack is learning to adapt. She rested her head against his shoulder, heart full. And we have to keep adapting, she murmured. Though I feel the wolf's blessing is still in our veins, I know it might not last forever. We need to build on the unity we have now. His voice softened with affection. You are wise, Eliana. Wiser than me, in some ways. She laughed under her breath. You are the Alpha. You are allowed to be a little thick-headed sometimes, or so the old stereotypes say. He smirked, resting a hand at her waist. If that is the case, you can keep me in line, Luna. Heaven knows I need it. They stood there together, the hush of twilight wrapped around them like a gentle blanket. The estate's lanterns flickered in the distance, illuminating paths that cut through the gardens. Somewhere in the night air, an owl hooted softly. Eliana felt a wave of contentment, the kind that had been so elusive for most of her life. The heartbreak of the past had not vanished, but it had transformed, molded into a deeper understanding of who she was, who Marcus was, and what the pack meant to them both. She looked up, an idea forming in her mind. Would you like to walk with me outside? She asked quietly. I have a feeling we both need some fresh air. He nodded, sliding his hand down her arm until their fingers interlaced. They left the study, slipping through the corridors until they emerged into the moonlit courtyard. Compared to the hustle of earlier days, the estate was calmer now, many wolves having retired for the night. A gentle breeze rustled the hedges and tall flowers, carrying the faint scent of night blooms that Selena had woven into Eliana's wreath during the ceremony. They strolled along the moonlit path, the gravel crunching softly underfoot. Eliana could not help recalling the many times she had walked these grounds alone as a teenager, feeling invisible and overshadowed. Now, everything looked different. Or perhaps she was the one who had changed so profoundly, but the same scenery appeared new. Marcus led her toward a distant section of the estate where a small overlook provided a view of the rolling hills below. A low stone wall circled the edge, and from there, one could see the faint glow of a river winding through dark forests. He helped her up onto the small ledge. They stood side by side, arms touching, letting the night air wash over them. The moon was bright, bathing the landscape in gentle silver light. At length, Marcus spoke. I remember standing here with you once before, though we were much younger. A wistful note crept into his voice. It was after some trivial gathering, and you were upset because your sister had teased you in front of a crowd. I found you crying here alone. Eliana's cheeks warmed at the memory. I had tried to hide, but you noticed. I remember how you told me that tears did not make me weak. Marcus nodded, eyes distant, as though reliving the moment. I also remember thinking how kind-hearted you were, how thoughtful. You were different from Selena in a way I could not explain back then. It just felt right to comfort you. A quiet hush stretched between them. Eliana felt the memory stirring old emotions, ones she had buried when she left. Back then, I thought you were just being courteous, she whispered. But looking back, maybe it was the bond drawing us together. He turned, cupping her cheek. I wish I had recognized that. It would have saved us so much pain. His voice wavered on the last words. Eliana covered his hand with hers, her heart clenching at the regret in his eyes. We cannot change it, but look at us now. We made it here, despite everything. He nodded, then leaned in, pressing a warm kiss to her forehead. She closed her eyes, savoring the gentle brush of his lips. The bond thrummed softly, like a hidden current of strength and devotion. It was not a storm of passion, but rather a steady, comforting presence that made her feel safe. She lifted her gaze to his, lips parting, ready to speak, only to be silenced by the feel of his mouth claiming hers in a tender yet ardent kiss. He pulled her close, one arm circling her waist, the other cradling the back of her head. She lost herself in the sweet rush of it, the world melting away until only the press of his body and the quiet night remained. When they finally drew back, her breathing was uneven and her cheeks flushed. She saw her own exhilaration mirrored in his eyes. With a soft laugh, she teased, "Still think you are thick-headed, Alpha?" He brushed his nose lightly against hers, eyes dancing. "Perhaps a bit less so tonight." A comfortable hush settled over them. They turned again to the overlook, the silver glow of the moon painting the rolling hills in soft light. Stars speckled the sky, shimmering above the shadowy outline of distant forests. Eliana felt an unspoken serenity, as though the land itself acknowledged the rightful balance restored. In that moment, she thought of the prophecy's phrase about the chosen Luna, how her spirit would align with the moon to guide the pack out of despair. She exhaled slowly, letting herself believe they had done just that. They lingered there for a while, exchanging murmured words, planning for the future. Eventually, the chill of night deepened, and they made their way back to the warm glow of the estate. A sense of renewed purpose accompanied each step, the promise of tomorrow shining in their hearts. The following weeks slipped by in a steady rhythm of reconstruction and healing. Eliana and Marcus continued to refine how they led Silvercrest together, combining his decisive leadership in security matters with her empathetic approach to internal concerns. The pack, for the most part, embraced them. Murmurs of doubt gradually faded as time revealed their synergy. Through it all, Selena established herself as a diplomatic envoy, traveling to neighboring packs and forging new alliances. In her letters home, she seemed happier than she had in years, at ease with the role she chose for herself, although the wolf's blessing's most dramatic effects had faded. The lingering spiritual connection among the pack endured in subtler ways. Faster recovery from minor illnesses, heightened awareness of each other's emotional states, a deeper sense of unity. No one took it for granted. Eliana, especially, treated each day as a reminder of the goddess Grace, thanking her privately for the chance to fulfill her birthright. One golden afternoon, Eliana found herself in the orchard that lay behind the estate, a place she had often wandered in her youth. The apple trees, heavy with ripening fruit, swayed gently in the breeze. She recalled how she and Selena would once dart between these trees, giggling over silly jokes or daydreaming about the future. That felt like another lifetime now. She breathed in the sweet scent of the orchard, letting her senses relax. A rustle of movement made her turn, expecting a groundskeeper or maybe a child. Instead, she saw the old seer stepping through the grass, her age-bent frame supported by a simple wooden cane. Her milky eyes, clouded by visions of the past and future, fixed on Eliana with uncanny precision. Despite her frailty, she wore an air of quiet reverence. "Luna," she greeted, her voice raspy but kind. "I thought I might find you here. You used to come to these trees when you were small." Eliana offered a warm smile, stepping closer. "Hello," she said gently. "It is good to see you about. I hope you have been well cared for." The old seer inclined her head. "The pack treats me well, yes. I only regret I could not do more to guide you and your sister. My visions were cloudy." but I glimpsed enough to know the true bond lay with you, not Selena. Yet tradition made them hush me when I tried to speak. I am sorry." Eliana felt a pang of sympathy for the old woman. "You did what you could," she replied. "No one can rewrite the past. The important thing is that we are on the right path now." The seer nodded, leaning on her cane. "Indeed. The path is set aright. Yet I came to warn you that destiny is never so simple. You and Marcus have succeeded in saving Silvercrest, but trials will always arise. Do not let complacency blind you. The bond you share is a powerful light. Guard it. Nurture it." Eliana's heart fluttered, hearing the weight in the seer's words. "I understand. Thank you," she said softly. The seer reached out, placing a withered hand atop Eliana's. "You have a kind heart, child. You remind me that even prophecies can hold heartbreak before leading to hope. Treasure what you have earned and continue your healing work. Silvercrest may need that strength again sooner than we wish." A slight chill passed through Eliana at the ominous hint. She placed her other hand over the seer's, offering comfort. "I will remember your words," she promised. The old woman smiled then, a faint curve of her cracked lips, before turning and shuffling away through the orchard. Eliana watched her go, mulling over the cryptic counsel. Life seldom granted permanent peace, it offered moments of respite between storms. She had no illusions that she and Marcus were forever free of adversity. Yet she took solace in knowing that, next time, they would face challenges as a united front, not as strangers or star-crossed souls longing in silence. Returning to the estate, she found Marcus in a courtyard archway, waiting with an amused glint in his eyes. "I heard you were wandering," he teased, stepping forward to greet her. "Am I to chase you through the orchard like old times?" She smiled, placing a hand on his chest. "Not unless you dare risk me outrunning you now," she shot back, enjoying the playful banter. "I am the Luna, after all." He laughed, gathering her into a gentle embrace. "I see your confidence grows," he said softly. Then his tone turned more serious. "But truly, I came to find you because the Border Patrol sent word of a stray group of rogues to the west. They appear to be aimless, not organized like the last batch, but it is worth investigating." Eliana nodded, heart steady. "We should confirm that they pose no danger," she agreed. "Do you want me on the team, or do you prefer I stay here?" A flicker of concern crossed his features. "I would never forbid you from going if you wish, but it might be just a routine check. We can send a small, experienced squad to chase them off. You can remain and coordinate from the estate. That is your call as Luna." She studied him thoughtfully. In the past, he might have commanded her to stay behind for safety, but now he respected her enough to leave the decision to her. A gentle warmth suffused her. "I will stay," she said. "There are still many tasks that require my attention, and I do not want to undermine the confidence of our patrols by hovering over them. They can handle this." He gave a satisfied nod. "Very well." He paused, fingertips brushing a loose strand of her hair. "I like this balance we have found, leading together but not smothering each other's roles." She smiled. "Me too." They walked together through the estate's hallways, discussing ongoing concerns, a possible alliance with another pack, the search for better trade routes, the need to finish rebuilding a few damaged structures. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by gestures of warmth that felt as natural as breathing. Eliana marveled at how, after all the heartbreak and confusion, they had arrived at a place of genuine partnership. That night, A soft drizzle pattered against the windows, the air filled with a gentle hush. The day's duties had ended, and Eliana found herself in her private quarters. Once, these rooms had belonged to Selena during her time as Luna, but the space felt different now, as though it had morphed to reflect Eliana's presence. Comforting earth tones, vases of fresh herbs, and the warm glow of lamps burning fragrant oil. She settled on a cushioned window seat, gazing out at the dark yard below, where lanterns flickered like fireflies in the misty rain. A knock sounded at the door. Before she could answer, Marcus slipped inside, closing it quietly behind him. He had shed his formal attire for a simple linen shirt and trousers, hair still slightly damp from the drizzle outside. "You were not at dinner," he said softly. "I worried you might be ill or overwhelmed." She shook her head, beckoning him closer. "I just needed a bit of quiet," she replied. "I sometimes wonder if I can truly fulfill everything expected of a Luna, and I find solace in moments like this." He sank down beside her on the window seat, their legs touching. Outside, the rain formed silvery trails against the glass. "Remember the seer's warning that we must keep growing?" he asked, pressing her hand gently in his. "We do not need to have all the answers right now. As long as we keep trying, keep caring, we will figure it out." She nodded, leaning her head on his shoulder. The tension in her mind ebbed, replaced by a wave of calm at his nearness. "That is true," she whispered, inhaling the faint scent of rain and pine that clung to him. "Besides, the pack is strong. They have survived countless hardships over the centuries." He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "And with you guiding their hearts, I believe they will be stronger still." She tilted her face up, meeting his gaze. The softness in his expression spoke volumes, an unspoken vow that she was not alone in any of this. With a surge of affectionate warmth, she reached up, brushing her fingers against his cheek. The quiet tension between them flared into something deeper, an awareness of the closeness they had both yearned for over years of separation and regret. He moved closer, breath hitching as he lowered his head. Her heart fluttered in her chest, the air charged with promise. Their lips met in a slow, lingering kiss, rain and candlelight weaving a cocoon of intimacy around them. She felt the faint hum of that old magic, the wolf's blessing that had bound them, spurking in the background. Yet this moment was about more than prophecy or tradition. It was the quiet fulfillment of two souls who had at long last recognized each other. When they parted, her pulse pounded, and she laughed softly under her breath, leaning her forehead against his. "I think we are on the right path," she murmured, voice trembling with emotion. He smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I would follow this path anywhere," he vowed. Then he gathered her into his arms, pulling her close as the rain continued its gentle dance against the windows. They did not speak of the heartbreak that had haunted them or the battles they had faced. They needed no more words for that. Instead, they let the night envelop them, hearts and breaths in sync, as the estate drifted into peaceful slumber. Eliana felt the weight of her lunar responsibilities, but she also felt the warm glow of a future that had once seemed unattainable, a future shared with the Alpha who, after years of choosing the wrong twin, had finally discovered the power of choosing the right one. In that quiet hush, she closed her eyes, letting images of the orchard and the moonlit glade wash over her. She saw the faces of those who had believed in her, the broken hearts that had been mended, and the promise of what they still could accomplish. This was not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where mistakes became lessons, differences found harmony, and love emerged stronger for every scar. And so, with the soft hum of the wolf's blessing in her soul, Eliana, the rightful Luna of Silvercrest, allowed herself to rest, knowing that dawn would bring its share of challenges and triumphs, all of which she was finally ready to face.